Hello and welcome back to the Geek Cabal channel. This is Cabal Whisperings, episode number 37. Had to think, just looked it up. I should have known. Yeah, finally back in June, a month later.
Yep.
So, yeah. Anyways, my name is Jim.
I'm Bobbie.
So, what do we got on the docket for channel updates?
All right. For those of you who watched the other videos, you probably noticed that there's been some delays in some of the videos, been more spacing. I was going at almost a video a day for quite a while. That has not happened over like the last 2 or 3 weeks. I'm back to working more or less full time, and it is seriously screwing with my sleep schedule. And like I have sleep apnea, and so it gets to the point that like I come home from work and I am dead tired. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm going to record. Just the thought of recording and then editing is like enough to put me off from it sometimes. So I've been trying to come up with things. And so I've been doing things that are easier to do for me, which is like there's been like the Lego building sets that I've been doing. And so it's more difficult to do things like, you know, reading books and then talking about them because I'm dead tired. It's not retaining. So I am trying to fix that. That's on me. I have a CPAP machine, but I get so tired I just fall asleep before I put it on, which is a problem. So you've probably noticed some gaps. Like I said, I've been doing some Lego videos because they're easy to do, and the last couple have gotten more views than some previous ones. So I will probably keep doing those. But the last one I did was for a larger set, so I broke up the review and the building it into 2 different videos, so it's not one like hour-long video. And I'm waiting to kind of see how that pans out, to see if that's the format I'm going to go for with the larger sets, because most of what I built up to this point have been fairly small sets, so I can do it all in one video. But these 2 videos combined are close to an hour. So if you want to comment at all on those videos or hear about that, let me know, because the only thing I have to go by is views and likes, and those don't tell me much of anything other than other than how many people are watching. Also, did a couple of movie reviews for recent movies I saw in theaters, and I'm going to talk about those here in a minute, a little bit more about them. And I've been watching a lot of Gundam stuff because I found a YouTube channel that has a lot of the shows on there. I think they rotate, and I think Sunbound knows that it's there. They have to, based on the name that's like It's a Gundam or something. I don't think it's that exact name, but something like that. And so once I get a few more of those watched, I'm going to start talking about Gundam stuff, which, if you follow the other videos, and you know I'm a big Battletech fan, it should come as absolutely no surprise to you that I'm also a Gundam fan. Kind of like when I went to go watch Char's Counterattack in a theater, was wearing a Battletech shirt, and a guy in the theater even commented, well, of course the guy in the Battletech shirt's coming to watch Gundam, because, giant robots, so why not? Now, Gundam, for those of you that don't know, is a little more fanciful, I guess is the term I'm looking for here. More superheroic. Battletech is like tanks on legs. It's gritty. Gundam, they fly around and do backflips and have lightsabers. However, the original Gundam series is quite gritty. Like, the whole point is that war sucks. But I'll talk about that in another video. Because I need to rewatch the original Gundam series. It's got a lot more episodes than the ones I've been watching. Recently, I rewatched Stardust Memory and War in the Pocket. So I'll need to rewatch the original series and the 8th MS team before I really start going into it. For some of you have no idea what the hell I'm talking about when I say those names, but you will if you watch our videos. That's most of what I've had up so far. Like I said, did a couple short story reviews for Battletech short stories. This is almost the end of the month, so they're going to flip over the free short story for the next month in July, so there'll be another one. And I since I missed a couple months, I tried to do June's like as early as possible in the month, and I will do so again in July. Don't think there's anything big on the Gen Con front. Chad and I did a few videos about like what we're going to be doing at Gen Con, so those are out there. I don't think there's any big news. No, Sun King did announce their beer flavor. It is some kind of apple cider kind of thing. Sounds good. I'm going to try it. A lot of theirs sound terrible to me. This one actually sounds good. So I don't remember what the pizza flavor is if they've announced it yet. So yeah. I think that's pretty much it for channel. No, sorry. There's one other thing. Forgot. I mentioned this in the Battletech video. For those of you who look at our playlists, you'll notice that we have a lot of them. And that's because I like to be able to link to very specific sets of videos. So I could lump all the movies under just movies, but that's not really going to help if I want to specifically talk about 80s horror movies. So I have '80s horror movies, '70s horror movies. I think if we can go back to the '60s. And like, so I've got like decade and genre. I do have a movies group if I just want to link to everything. But a lot of it I do have like decade and genre for movies. Well, the Battletech videos are getting kind of sprawling, and so I've started subdividing them into a bunch of other categories. So it's going to make it easier to link to specific things. But plus, since Battletech seems to be where 3/4 of the subscribers are coming from, to be able to link to very specific things, I hope will help. So I've already started doing that a couple nights ago. I've got to finish going through all the existing Battletech videos and putting them into the right other categories, but I'm about halfway done with that. So, yeah. If you are a fan or not a fan of that, please let me know down in the comments.
Yeah, speaking of things that have been gaining in popularity, I was looking at the analytics the other day, and one of my videos actually, I think, showed up under the top content. Was kind of surprised on that.
Yeah.
No, I don't see it on there.
It rotates by month.
Yeah. So and this I thought I just looked on it the other day, but yeah, one of them that I had saw was the unboxing of the Sega Genesis Model 3.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's a strange one to.
Yeah, I'm always surprised by which ones show up in there.
So it just kind of surprised me that. That was getting some traction, and I get it with the space that I try to occupy a lot of the retro video game stuff. There's so much. Yeah. It's like a fire hose out there of content. So like even getting, things out there for people to look at.
Yeah, well, the other problem is, from what I've gathered from all the videos, how the algorithm works. The problem is, like, say I make Battletech videos, okay? Then I make a few of them. Well, it starts showing that content to people that watch Battletech videos. But the moment I throw like a Lego video in there, all of a sudden the algorithm's like, well, hold on, this is different. Who should I show this to? And it takes a few videos for it to realize, oh, I should be showing this guy's content to Lego people. But by then I've already like thrown a movie video in there. So in other words, like the way we're doing it is probably hurting getting it out there. However, we like to talk about lots of things, so...
Yeah, I mean, unless we're going to be, like, breaking our channel out to, like, Geek Cabal video gaming, Geek Cabal Battletech.
Yeah, which I don't want to do, because the few people that did respond to the poll that I put up for that said, no, don't do it. So, however, on that note, there's one other thing, Jim. Thank you for bringing that up, because there was one other thing. I will probably not be doing any more shorts anytime soon, because I've seen enough videos, other people explain how the algorithm works and everything. Like, that could actually cripple our channel, because if one of those shorts takes off, like goes viral, and a couple of our shorts videos are like our highest viewed videos. One of them's a Battletech one from Gen Con, has over 10,000 views. And like, so that's not going to hurt us because that's Battletech stuff. We do a whole bunch of that. But like, what could happen is, say one of them goes viral, and then people subscribe, but they're people that want shorts content. We just don't make a lot of it. So they're not going to watch the long form content videos. Well, the algorithm's going to be like, oh, so you're putting out content that your own subscribers don't want. Yeah, let's not show you to other people. Like, clearly you're not doing it right. And so, because we could gain so many subscribers, it will multiply that effect. So, like, we'll have that initial boost, but then it's going to, like, cripple everything else. So, we might actually make a second channel just for shorts, if we think we're going to have shorts content. If we do that, I'm going to keep the existing shorts on the main channel. I will probably copy them on the other channel, but I won't make any more on the main channel. And if we do decide to do that, I will have an announcement and everything, and I'll make a post and everything else. So, but also, if you find folks have any thoughts on that matter, please tell us down in the comments. But that is one thing, because I noticed as I was doing the last batch of Lego videos, I was getting about 1,000 views or so on the building them videos for the shorts. But like, the counts for all the regular videos were going down whenever that was happening. So like, that was a microcosm of what could happen. And so, yeah, I think these people know what they're talking about. So, it's not the whole driving force, but like, obviously we do want the channel to grow. So it's a concession we're going to have to make to the algorithm, because the algorithm doesn't know how to distinguish between the two, because they had two separate algorithms and just kind of smashed them together, as I understand it.
So you said that.
Microcosm.
one of the games I'll talk about a little bit later that I picked up, Microcosm.
So yeah, that's most of the news for the channel. We're end of June here.
Yeah.
So in approximately a month, in a few days, expect some Gen Con content because the convention will be on. So,
I can say, as far as me with any channel news, again, trying to find time to get out and do recording. Like lately, it's been buying vehicles for kids that are at my at my house. So, had Botto in a car, and then I bought my stepdaughter a car. And today I just helped my boy that we have staying with us also get a truck. So, my driveway is kind of full of vehicles at the moment, and it's something. These people that I trying to teach kids how to drive. It's terrifying. I know now why they put the old crap handle on the passenger side, because they might they're holding that, hitting the invisible brake as they're driving. And
it's funny you should mention that, Jim. There's actually a BattleTech book that I did a review on about a month ago, where the author referred to the handle there, and it was one of the things that actually jumped out at me. Was like, I wonder if that phrase is actually still going to exist 1,000 years from now. And I mentioned that on the Facebook group, and some people were like, yeah, that's one of the things I actually don't like about that author, that he uses modern day lingo when the stories are 1,000 years from now.
Well, unless he's like saying roll down the window.
Well, it was one of the but it was one of those, like, I didn't take it as a bad thing. It just it's noticeable though when you're not used to seeing it, and then all of a sudden you see modern day phrases. Because it wasn't just that; it was a guy had a mustache and is described as a Van Dyke. And I was like, well, it's named for Dick Van Dyke, as near as I can tell, I believe. And he's an actor in the modern day. Like, will that still be called that 1,000 years from now? And maybe it will be. I think that's that's a discussion to be had, because obviously there are phrases we use now that have no connection to their original phrase. Like, do you know what the term? You know why they call a doorway a threshold? You have any idea? Because, unless I've been lied to, so this could entirely be false, but this is what I'm given to understand. Back in like the Middle Ages, you had a dirt floor, but you put like straw on it, or what they called thresh, and there was a board at the door to hold it. Hence, the board was a threshold. And so whenever you would lift your wife over the threshold, and so she wouldn't have to step over it.
Makes sense.
And then we just still call it that, even though like clearly we don't have boards holding hay in.
Yeah.
So 1,000 years from now, yeah, maybe that will still be called that.
And there's a lot of phrases out there that, like, when you actually hear what the meaning is, like the one I saw the other day, like Hanover, was literally what they would do is the people, when they'd be so drunk, they would be a wire, and they would hang the people over the wire to sober up.
See, there you go.
And that's why people would have a hangover.
I mean, the show where I found that out about threshold also explained where the middle finger and the phrase associated with it comes from. So I'm not going to go into that on here because I'm going to have to repeat it several times. But it goes back to the Battle of Agincourt, the English and the French.
And I mean, there's terms that we use that, I mean, people would never, like, I think like balls to the wall is a playing term. It's about putting the throttle to the all the way to the wall, because they got the ball on it.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people fly, fighter jets or, fighter planes or whatever, and wouldn't have, that come to, so good discussion. I mean, I think certain terms would. I mean, technically, I think roll down the window still applies today, even with electric windows, because technically the motor's still rolling the window down. It's still, the motor's spinning.
And I still see most older people do this number, because, like, what do you do? This?
Yeah.
I mean, or you do, to signify that you want the window down. But even younger people that know what this means, even though they've never used a crank.
Well, the one that always gets me is when people are like, "Why do you have a save icon? You have a floppy disk."
Yeah.
Did you 3D print that?
Or like people wondering on like a Blu-ray player or something, the buttons, like, what do these symbols actually mean? You have to go back to, I think it's a record player, to know what their original usage was. And
anyways,
we just kept using them for devices, and now they're so far removed. It's like, why does this arrow mean this? It's like, but people don't even think about it. They just use it. They know what it does. They just don't know where it comes from. So yeah, I mean, like I said in the review, like it just took me out of the story for a moment, and just made me kind of think about it. But it was not a negative thing.
Well, and it makes me think, like Star Trek and stuff like that. They were always, especially because they always wanted to talk about current events, but couldn't talk like they were living said current events. they had to, have, their whatever speak. I liked in like First Contact when, Zephyr Cochrane's like, I gotta go take a leak.
Yeah. Yeah, Jordan's like, leak? What leak? He's like, don't you people pee in the future? Oh, a leak. Oh, that's pretty clever. He's like, yeah, sure, whatever. No, but actually, I was thinking about it the other day, and actually, I was thinking about Star Trek in that respect. Like, I think Enterprise has actually kind of ruined my view of the rest of Star Trek in a way. Because, like, Enterprise, they were still watching movies. So, movies clearly still exist. Now, they were older movies, so I don't know if anyone was making new movies. But I assume if the flagship of what eventually becomes the Federation has a movie theater on board, someone's probably still making movies. But, like, by even the original series, we don't even hear about it.
Yeah, well...
And it's one of those, like, I get that, especially by the next generation, there's supposed to be, a more evolved culture. So, of course, it's going to be, instruments even older than movies are still going to be played, plays and whatnot. But, like, why would movies no longer exist? Like, they would just be more sophisticated. They'd be, there wouldn't be the usual trash that we watch, It'd be like, I don't know, like everything would be Oscar worthy. There'd be real production value.
Well, in the original series, the one thing they always did, they went to like planets that were like recreational planets. It wasn't Risa at that time. It was whatever. There's the one they went to where everything was like Shakespearean.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been a while.
But yeah, you're right, because I remember that they sat down and watching movies. But obviously then later it was the holodeck. I think you're right.
Yeah, although that's fair with the holodeck. I mean, if you've got that, I can see where movies would be less of an interest if you can literally just go live the experience. I could see that, but you would think somewhere they would still exist, or like, at least at the very least you'd expect like Quark and Garrick in one of their conversations about the quirks of humans. They'd be like, so these things called movies, you ever heard of them? Like when they talk about root beer in that one episode.
Well, you think about it, like if you could do a holodeck movie, I mean, minus having, being able to actually fill the action, I don't think you'd probably want to be like filling the explosions and everything. But could you imagine if like virtual reality movies, like where you literally sit in, so every time you go to watch the experience, you're like in the middle of it, looking around, seeing things. I mean, they try to focus the attention in front of you, but
yeah,
at any point in the scene, you could pause it, look to see what's around you, be able to take in the environment.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a way that they could milk a lot of money out of things. Like you can make an experience that people would want to go and watch over and over and over again. And certain movies would become absolutely terrifying to watch in person, like Alien or Aliens.
Yeah. But yeah, and even with the holodeck, though, now to think about it, because like they used novels to create experiences.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they have access to 20th century movies? To be like, put me in. Well, I imagine the one would be like, put me in Saving Private Ryan, like the beach scene, let's go. It'd be more like, I'm sure it'd be like Macbeth or something, but...
Well, one is there'd be too many people like Barkley that would just... that would just abuse the holodeck.
Barkley abused the holodeck anyway.
But, oh gosh, that... No, I think the only reason why we never saw it in any form of anything was because they just couldn't get the rights. It would have to be a Paramount movie or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that probably has a lot to do with it. And I think it was that the others were supposed to be when mankind, when we were more sophisticated, whereas Enterprise is like, look, the Third World War just happened. Like, we're barely gotten done rebuilding the world. Like, of course we still have our primitive forms of entertainment here.
But, and I wonder if any of them were supposed to be based on movies, like the one with Picard as the detective.
Oh, the Dixon Hill ones? Yeah.
I mean, some of those may have been,
maybe.
Who knows? But I mean, I'm sure they're,
because I know they went into Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
But they would have also been able to either get the rights, or they would already, it was the 90s, so they would have had to pay for the rights. Because actually, for a fun fact, I believe it was last year was whenever the Sherlock Holmes catalog, at least in the U.S., is now all the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle works are now finally public in the United States. So anyone can make anything with them. Now, any later works they can't, and in other countries, we have different timetables when things become public.
Yeah.
But
well, you just never know what people are going to make. Because I mean, look what happened when Winnie the Pooh.
I didn't watch it, but that was great. There's one coming out for Popeye, where he's like a psycho killer because like the spinach is like radioactive. That's why he's like big and muscular and everything. Yeah, I saw the trailer for it. Looked pretty good.
Well, we haven't
It was Popeye the Slayer, man, if I remember right.
So we haven't even got into our topics for discussion.
Yeah, we should probably better do that.
Which is fine. I mean, I don't think we have to have any sort of format, but it's nice to have at least some guidelines so we know where we're heading. But there's one thing that I had brought to Bobbie's attention right before this, and I don't want to mention the creator because it's obviously the largest creator on the platform.
Well, we're going. It's not like he's going to sue us. Go ahead and talk. Like, we're not going to defame him here. So,
hey, you know what?
Well, okay, I'm not going to defame him here.
Well, no, but I mean, it was Mr. Beast. He had come out with some stat software where you can kind of see, like other creators' stats and everything, and it has some tools to help build up your own channel. On paper, it all sounds nice. It sounds like he's trying to, one of the things that they mentioned is trying to level the playing field, trying to make it so that you can have the same tools that the big creators have, where he has like 300 people on staff and Bobbie's the video editor.
I am the staff.
Yes, I'm just here for my colorful commentary. But one of the controversies that came out of it was that...
Consequently, I am also the Senate, just to be clear.
Yes. Now you can do a 720 from a sitting
position.
Yes,
here it goes.
With a lightsaber. Yes. So one of the things that came out of this set of tools was a tool for generating AI thumbnails. So, in theory, a tool that helps you make your thumbnail so you don't have to spend time, putting it into Photoshop, which from the demos I've seen people take, it looks like it would be like a, 5-10 minute process for the thing to process just to make a simple thumbnail. Isn't inherently bad, but it was like everything else that built on top of that, where it's like, this is kind of shady. Like one of them is, say you have a creator out there that you're like, you know what, they make pretty good thumbnails. I want that. It allows you to copy their style. Not only that, it allows you to copy their thumbnail. And you're like, well, I can't just use their thumbnail because it's got their picture on it. Well, not anymore, because the tool also allows you just to swap your face onto theirs.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, in some aspects, that may look a little weird because, depending on who you're copying, woman creator, it's like, well, my head on a woman's body, that may look a little weird. I mean, I think I'll say in theory,
it's a brave new world.
I say in theory, having a tool to generate, thumbnails isn't a bad idea because I think, having something out there that's going to grab people's attention and an easy way of doing it is good. But when it's involving pretty much being able to steal whatever you want from anybody, generate how you want to generate it, and just copy everybody else, I mean, I think we're already running into the territory where people are replacing their entire channels with AI. I've seen it on Facebook where there's like groups out there where it's just AI videos. And I mean, yes, they're bizarre and crazy to watch. But then I find myself like 3-4 videos in watching these monstrosities of videos. And I realize I'm feeding the problem. They're just so out there. Like nobody could possibly think of this. And it's...
Yeah, well, I saw what has to be like AI Inception almost here. What I mean is like layers within layers. If you've ever seen the movie Inception. If you haven't, you should go watch it. It's an excellent movie. And it's one of Christopher Nolan's movies you can actually mostly understand. I've seen, for those of you who are alive, early 2000s, I want to say, there was a series of Dos Equis commercials, the alcohol Dos Equis, where they had a guy's like the most interesting man in the world, and be like, yeah, he once won a bullfight with merely a cape, just all this crazy baloney, like he once went to the moon without a spaceship, stuff like that. And just be various larger than life feats, and we'd have him there and be like, stay thirsty, my friends. Like whenever I drink a beer, I drink Dos Equis and stay thirsty, my friends. And this is not an endorsement of Dos Equis. I don't work for their company. I'm not trying to sell their beer. I'm not trying to claim their copyright. Just to be clear on all this. So, a company, group, whatever, has used AI to create these. And by the way, just fair warning, most of these are like, I would say, fairly racist, because they just check every single what's the word I'm looking for here, Jim? Not trope, stereotype, and for whatever to be. It was like the most Asian man in the world, the most Mexican man, the most English man, the most French man, and they just every single stereotype you can possibly imagine is packed into these videos, but they're made with AI. So there were those, but then there was a guy was telling AI, okay, now that you've looked at those, make me a Dos Equis commercial about the most interesting man in the world. And so it sorted through these others, and then back to the others. And it's like the fake ones, but also like the Dos Equis commercial, but they can't call it Dos Equis. I think they call it Tres Equis at the end. But yeah, it's just like, I was watching, it's like, this could have actually been a commercial for Dos Equis back whenever these commercials were out. This guy almost looks like the guy in those commercials. And it's like, and I know it's being filtered through this other prism, but like, this is uncanny. But no, but the ones I do actually kind of like are the ones that's like, imagine if Starship Troopers was made in the 1950s, and it's like, those actually look pretty cool. Like, I'd go for a movies in those style. Like, what if Star Wars was made in the 1930s? And it's like, well, they would have called it, Flash Gordon, but sure, they're bizarre, but they're interesting. Those I can get behind. Those are kind of creative.
Yeah. I say a lot of them are just, I don't know. You see them, and you're like, okay, I can tell this is gonna be an AI thing, and like the people's actions, like the way that their bodies move in it, it's just unnatural, and they do something just bizarre, and it's just, I don't know, it's like watching a train wreck at times. But I think, and I think we've talked about it before, but I mean, there's channels out on YouTube now that are replacing all of their content with AI. And not even just like weird AI videos, but like just AI dialogue. Just letting AI write the entire script.
Well, what's really funny is having seen videos that were literally just, hey, read this story that I stole from Reddit. And, some like long drawn out sci-fi story. And some of them are actually really good, by the way. But one of the voices used, I've now heard that voice in like real commercials on TV. So I know they're just using the AI voice.
Yep.
And I'm just like, it's a very distinct voice. Like, it's not a generic regular. I hate to say regular because no one's voice is regular, but you know what I mean. It has distinct tones to it. And I heard it one day, and I was like, wait a minute, that's the AI voice. And it was for like, ED pills.
And to be honest, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with having an AI voice read stuff, especially if it's your own stuff. Like, say if you're going to have some content out there where, you just want to be able to type a script, have it read your script, and you do the editing and put the video together. I don't see any problem with that. I also don't see a problem with AI outlining, what you're going to talk about in your episode, like giving you a general outline. But I think where it's going to draw the line is that when everything you talk about is just exactly what AI has told you to say, and
right, because I've seen some people show some interesting results. Because one was talking about the Star Wars collectible card game, and someone posted this in one of the groups talking about the cards for the Death Star 2. And it's like, well, this isn't actually a location you can place, and all of a sudden it starts talking about the Lego Star Wars video game, and it's like, I don't think that existed at that point in time, and that's definitely not a condition to play those cards. Like, AI, what the hell are you talking about? And then it gets back on track, and it's like, I think you missed a step there, Skynet. But, I mean, I look at it as the way it is right now. I think it's evolving towards how the computer works in Star Trek. It can't come up with ideas on its own. I mean, it kind of can if you give the right parameters, but it's really just conglomerating. But as an aid to you being creative, to like maybe fill in a gap or come up with a better turn of phrase or something, like, absolutely. Yeah. Like, I don't see the problem with that. Because it's not like people don't have a thesaurus or don't look on the internet for better like writing anyway, or they don't look to someone else, but like, well, he uses phrases like this, I'm going to act like that. People already do that.
And like you were talking about, like having a writer's block, that could be a perfect way to, come up with just a twist, an idea or something to push you out over the edge. But I don't think it should ever be a replacement. I did see a thing where somebody would mention that they should have two categories: people-made movies, AI-made movies. AI movies should be cheaper to go to because it takes less, whatever to write, less whatever, especially if the AI actually makes the movie.
Yeah.
And then, obviously the people-paid one is going to be more.
Was it a scene from one of the Star Wars movies, one of the recent ones, where someone with AI made a better-looking one, and they were like, that scene cost you like $60 million to make. It cost me $8, and mine looks better. Like, yeah, I don't have a problem, especially if you actually own the base material that the AI is copying, because that's the murky zone. Is the whole like at its base, like, it is taking things that other people have created. Now, I think there's enough free stuff out there, older paintings, older movies, older writings for AI to draw upon to still be able to fill in the gaps, right? Because I mean, if I go in there and I'm like, hey, help me write this to sound like Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein, like 2 centuries ago. Like, that's clearly in the public domain at this point. I'm not stealing from anybody. Mary Shelley is long since dead, or from even at this point, you can almost do Tolkien. He's close. Or Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, like we mentioned. If you're, for writers who are long since passed, trying to emulate their voice, especially if you wrote the thing and then you're like, rewrite this to sound like this, and then you go in and massage it a little bit, I think maybe you should have to credit the AI somewhere in your writing, or just yes, I did use AI to help.
Yeah, and I think that, well, kind of to circle back on the very beginning reason of this topic is, I think, like, say, if we use AI to generate our thumbnails, I think what you would have to do as a parameter is you'd have to give them our assets, like our images, our, like pictures of us, the logo, our general style, but then incorporate all of that into generating, a thumbnail that's, going to work for us, going to be, help us be more viral, but at the same time does not impede upon anybody else's intellectual work. And I mean that I mean that like in other people's thumbnails. Like, we shouldn't be able to steal somebody else's thumbnail and put our stuff into it.
Yeah. Well, without going into super detail, I do have. I don't want to sound like a hypocrite when I talk about things like this, because if you look at our thumbnails, I clearly do use like movie posters that I clearly don't own, but I'm talking about the movie. Like, what else am I supposed to put there? And the movie poster is meant to advertise the movie. And unless I'm going to just absolutely trash the movie, so I guess if it was for Star Wars The Acolyte, maybe they'd have a case. But everything else I've talked about, I only watch things I like, so I only talk about things I like. I don't usually go about like, oh man, that movie was god-awful. I don't plaster their poster and be like, don't watch this piece of shit, So I view it as I am helping them advertise. Plus, I'm not making any money off of it, so,
not yet.
But like the Battletech stuff. Like, I use Battletech artwork, but I'm also hopefully promoting their stuff. So, and if it gets to the point that we actually are making money, then I'll probably have to pay someone to actually make a real thing for it. But because I've noticed some others do use some original artwork. So
yeah, well,
and if I have money to pay for original artwork, I will. Okay, it's that simple. Because I would rather do that than impede someone's copyright. But like I said, we're not making any money, so. They're not losing anything. Hopefully they're gaining. But yeah, but as far as your point, like, you're taking something that someone definitely created that's not a big multinational corporation and is like, I'll just borrow this for my own use. It's like, borrow. But yeah, that's no good.
I think what you end up doing is you end up muddying the water, because then people can't tell, whose stuff is what. I mean, there's a lot of content that I watch that's very similar, different people, and sometimes I'm getting to the point that I'm like, oh, I thought I was watching this creator, and it turns out I'm watching another one, because their stuff is so different. Now, what's funny though is that
there's no mistake in ours. Like, there's no production value here. Like, this is the production value at the moment.
Yeah.
In these microphones.
Hey, the microphones were
they're excellent, Jim. You made a good purchase on that.
Yeah, they weren't cheap, but they work so well with hooking up to different things. If we ever are going to like Gen Con, it helps isolate voices so that we're not being drowned out by all the noise. But yeah, so I mean that's really what I have with the AI thumbnails things. But
yeah, I mean overall the AI thing is, it's going to come down to, there's going to have to be court cases or laws put in place as far as what you can and can't train the AI on, as far as like copyright infringement. Like, right now we're in the Wild West, even though there's a concept that I've come across in various things I've read up on. Most of the time in situations like this, it's clear what the law should be. It's clear what the law is saying. It's just that the water is muddied because we're like, well, it's new technology. It's different. No, it's not. Like, it's like I read a book a long time ago. Not a long time, it was a few years ago. It had to do with people that were stock traders that were building their data centers as close as possible to the exchanges, so they would know when trades were occurring, high volume trades, so they could jump in and start buying the stock based on that. That's illegal. Like the book clearly laid out, I'm not a lawyer, I'm going based on what the book said, that this is illegal. It's a crime already on the books, and it had to deal with, like, say you were in San Francisco and you had a guy in New York and he called you and told you what the stock just did, and that information got there before the ticker got there, and you made a trade based on that, that's illegal, because you have knowledge ahead of the market, and it's an illegal trade. This is the exact same thing, just using computers, but for some reason, people weren't prosecuting it. It's like, well, it's just, and guys like, no, it's the exact same crime. You're just using different methods. Most of these things are the exact same things in the criminal code. It's just you're using different things, like the AI thing. Like, if you're using other people's intellectual property without telling them, and then somehow incorporating it into another product, you're stealing from them. I mean, based on my understanding of everything. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not, casting aspersions here, but like, that's what's happening as near as I can tell.
Well, and I think, like you said, you were talking about the movie posters, or if we're doing like a video game and stuff. I think that's a little bit different territory. I think it's when somebody had created, especially like I said, most of these people are, maybe smaller groups, or even if they're the largest, creator on the platform. I mean, when you're starting to, steal and mimic and take their style and do all that, I mean,
yeah, okay. So the big thing it comes down to here on YouTube is the fair use doctrine. Okay, so like, if we were going to talk about Mr. Beast, for instance, in one of his videos, we legally are allowed to show the video and comment on it. Now, he can choose to sue us.
I ain't gonna get nothing. I mean,
well, yeah, I mean, we're not making any money off it, but he could choose to sue us. But ultimately, we would prevail if we followed the lawsuit through, because the fair use doctrine says you can do that. You also got some grounds of parody. That's why the Incredibles, Marvel sued them, because it's a fairly blatant knockoff of the Fantastic Four. So for Marvel to keep their trademark, I remember it's trademark copyright, I think it's the trademark, they have to sue, because there can't be cases where people can point to, like, well, you didn't sue over here. Because if that happens enough, the courts can rule, well, you're not clearly invested in maintaining this, so this is now in the public domain. So that's why they have to sue. But the counter defense was, well, this is a parody. Like, we're not trying to compete directly with them. This is clearly a comedy. This is a parody. That's why, like, Mel Brooks can make Spaceballs, and not be seen by George Lucas, or the upcoming Spaceballs 2. For those of you who haven't seen the trailer for it,
yeah,
which apparently everyone that's still alive is going to be back in that. I really hope it's Tim Russell Tuvok. What's his last name? It's Tim something.
I think it's right.
But anyway, he even did a video one day of that. It's like, I've been in so many movies and TV shows, and everyone just remembers me for that one role where he's combing the desert, and it's like, we ain't found shit. I feel like I didn't even know that was him until I saw that. But yeah, I hope he comes back too. But anyway, so like, we have like fair use, plus there's the fact that, again, we're not making money. Okay, like, we're not out here like with the Battletech stuff. We're not printing this stuff on T-shirts and selling it. Yeah. That is clearly illegal. But since we're not making money off of it, it's in a nebulous zone, because there's no harm being done. We're not denying the owner's money. And now, unless you're dealing with someone like Disney, who's very sue happy, they go after people like, we're not selling this, we're giving this to kids with cancer. Like, we don't care. Screw them kids. This is Mickey Mouse. Like, this belongs to us. Like, you'll pay us $10,000 per shirt or whatever that you made, and hope you burn in hell. Like, that's Disney's response.
Well, the thing that I think I think where I've seen some YouTube channels that kind of cross the line is where they do reactions to videos.
Oh yeah, reaction where they just sit there and stare at it.
Yeah, and they don't even say anything half the time. Like, they're just like,
Well, okay, so,
and some of those, like, their reaction is just a pre-recorded thing of them sitting down in the bottom corner, just kind of going.
Yeah. Now, again, I am absolutely not a lawyer, but I believe that's actually because of a case involving another video on YouTube. It involved Sargon. You know who he is?
Yeah.
All right. Because he did a reaction video, I think it was a reaction video, to, God, I can't remember who did the original video. But essentially, it was just, I think, because it's been forever since I saw all the videos about the court case and everything, I think it literally just was like, came at the end like, yep, something like that, to the video. Because what the person in the video claimed was going to happen did not happen. It had to do with, I think, with Hillary winning the election or something. It's been a long time. This case was years and years ago. And it went to a lawsuit, and he had to come to New York and everything, and the judge agreed that it was a transformative video, that he did add something to it.
Himself?
Yeah. And so I think a lot of those are because that went through. Other people are like, well, if that's all you got to do, I think. I'm not a lawyer, I'm a YouTube historian.
Could you imagine now, we were just talking about the AI stuff, could you imagine that somebody goes, take this video and just put me in the bottom corner reacting to it?
Yeah. I mean, what I really love are the ones that it's like layers of reacting. But it's like the original video, then there's a guy reacting, and then another guy reacting, and then another guy reacting. And it's just like, what is going on here? This is like reaction inception. Like, this is clearly, this is no good. No one should be making money off this. Hell, the only reaction we ever did, I didn't even include the video. Which, now I can, because I finally found something that can let me do that.
But
funny cliff note on how I figured out how to do this. I asked ChatGPT.
Yeah, there you go.
And it was even like, well, it even gave me like the whole like, well, copyrighted videos, you got to be careful. But if you're going to do it, here's how you should do it. And I was like, thank you, ChatGPT.
Yeah, ChatGPT. You ever tell it thank you?
I didn't that time. I don't normally. Normally it takes me a minute to figure out how to word the question, because you can't just say, well, what would you do? Because it doesn't understand you're talking to it. You have to say, what would you, ChatGPT, do in this case?
Yeah.
Or at least the version I'm using. I use the free version. I'm cheap.
All right. Well, we can hop off the AI topic into something of more probably discussion with the.
I'm going to use AI to edit this video.
Yeah, there we go.
No, I'm not.
So, and I know you've got a topic here, but I was going to discuss this because I think this has got some good things here. So I do have a couple of recent purchases, and while most of them,
Jim, I hate to interrupt you, but I need to move for just a moment.
Okay.
So I'm gonna be right back.
Okay.
I don't want this to follow me. I will be back in a moment. You go ahead and continue if you want to.
All right. Well, while he's off doing his own thing, just going to talk about some of the recent purchases that I have made, and then kind of segue into a place where I purchased some of these and some of the, I guess, negative, positive experiences of purchasing off of a particular website, actually. So some of my latest purchases, and I would put these into a dedicated video, but really there's not a whole lot to look at in a lot of these. But jokingly, Bobbie had mentioned Microcosm, and I got for the Sega CD Microcosm, which is I believe kind of just an on-rail shooter game with some pre-rendered backgrounds that you kind of fly through, nothing too fantastic. But I picked this up for $16.99. Only Sega CD game that I bought. The rest of them were for the Sega Saturn, so I'll go with the two cheaper purchases first, and then I will go with the more expensive one that I had there. So the first one, and hard to see, but I'll show you the back, is Command and Conquer for the Sega Saturn. And I know Bobbie had mentioned kind of like, well, how do you play Command and Conquer for the Saturn? How do any of these games translate to a controller base when really they're meant to be played with a mouse? So I don't know, and I'm going to find out at some point in time. If any of you have played any of these games, let me know. Your feedback on it. I'd be really interested. And I know I played Command and Conquer for the N64, and I know that selecting troops usually involved holding a button, dragging a cursor across the screen to select multiple units, and it was not as good as doing it on a PC. But yes, I got Command and Conquer, and this one will come into this style of game will come into play with one of my other purchases. Not this next one. This next one is Blackfire for the Saturn. Oh, Command and Conquer was $19.99 if I didn't say the price on that, but Blackfire is also $19.99. This appears to be a helicopter game, which with my recent collection of all of the Desert Strike, Jungle Strike, and Urban Strike for both the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and I've got Nuclear Strike for the PlayStation 1. I think I still got to get it for the N64. I'm trying to collect all of the Strike games. This one looks kind of similar to that, but it's another helicopter game. Don't know anything about it, never played it, never had a Saturn, but for a very short period of time. Not a story that I care to get into. just had a Saturn for a little bit. Saturn got taken away because of consequences that were not of my own thing. So, yeah. Anyways, last game, and this was the big buck game that I got, was Warcraft 2, and this one happens to be called The Dark Saga. So I don't know if this is a different campaign from the PC version, because the PC version, which I did an unboxing of the expansion for, was called The Tides of Darkness, and then the expansion was Beyond the Dark Portal. So I do not know if the Dark Saga is a combination of the two, or if it is a... Okay, so looking at the back here, it says 52 missions, includes the Tides of Darkness and the Dark Portal expansion. So the Dark Saga is both expansions. So that, well, I answered my own question. I guess I should have looked at the back before I started talking. But yeah, again, same thing as, how well would this play on a Saturn, being able to, multi-select units, that kind of stuff. So, give Bobbie here a second to get back in here. He's on his way. And then, by the way, I paid $99 for this game. So this was the expensive one.
I try to do this in such a way that I don't make a bunch of noise on here.
That's all right. So I was just going over the games here, and I was just talking about. I was like, I should have read the back on this one, but the Dark Saga. And like I said, we did the unboxing a while back of the expansion for Warcraft 2. Yeah. Well, this one includes both the Tides of Darkness and the Dark Portal. So this is this is both games in one thing. So one of the things I mentioned with these and Command and Conquer is, a game that was designed to use a mouse primarily, and you have to use a controller. Instead, I remember playing Command and Conquer on the N64, and that was always kind of a problem, like having to multi-select units, because you'd have to hit a button, drag the receptacle, or
Yeah, I always kind of wondered. I never played any of them on a console. I only played them on the computer. So I always kind of wondered, because to me, I was like, I don't understand how this can be mapped to this effectively.
Well, yeah, so usually it is. With the mouse, you drag and drop. And some of the stuff, I know Command & Conquer is also for the PlayStation. You can get a PlayStation mouse. So, something you can definitely get. So, the other two games, good timing for Bobbie. I had to try to pad that out so that... so the other games I bought in person. These two, I actually bought off Gamestop, off their website. Because, I was actually kind of... We've talked about this before. And this is kind of a segue into, GameStop's future, because the only future GameStop has is selling every game that's ever existed at some point. Because...
Well, physically
existed. Because the problem is that we're getting into a realm of everything being digital. That you're not actually physically owning any of your games anymore. So the retro market, and this is the thing I think they can really benefit on, is being able to actually buy retro games from them, and they have a whole retro section. It's pretty cool. What's not cool is what they have that's available online versus what you have to go into the store and pick up. And from where we live down in southern Indiana, at least our local GameStop, most local GameStop, has nothing. There's no retro games at all. So I was like, okay, cool, I can't pick them up, so I have to have them shipped. Not a problem. Yes, it's a problem, because half the retro games are not available online. They're only available in store. You have to find a store that actually carries them. So, one of the problems that you're going to have with ordering retro games off GameStop...
Just one quick question, Jim.
Yeah.
Are there any near us that do carry them?
I don't know. I did it within a 100-mile radius, and I couldn't find a single game.
Ugh. I would think Indianapolis would have one or two.
But I don't know what the deal is with that. And I get why some things would maybe only be available in store, like, say, for example, Chrono Trigger. Which, it was a strange thing with Chrono Trigger. Supposedly, on GameStop's website, a copy of Chrono Trigger for the Super Nintendo was $99. But then I think I went into it, and I think it was showing Chrono Trigger for the DS or for another version of it. It was really weird, but still, it was $99, and I'm like, that's like $100 cheaper than the pricing charts has it listed.
Yeah.
The second thing, and this is a comparison that DK Oldies does that the GameStop does not do, is they didn't tell me anything about the what would actually come with the game. I think the only thing that was mentioned was you'll get the game. Now, would you get a case? Like, say, for example, I got two GameCube games here. One, you can see what it is. This one here, you can tell me what this is. Most of you can see that this is Zelda the Wind Waker. This one, if you can't read, is The Legend of Zelda: The Ocarina of Time, the Master Quest version for the GameCube. So this one just came in a generic. This one actually came in the regular box. No manual with either one of them. And the prices that these were, they show like $65 and $70. I believe that is what I paid for them. That's roughly the price of a complete in box. Not that the manual or the box is really changes the price that much. I mean, I think with just the game itself, you're still talking like in the $60 range, $50 range. I mean, the manuals. I'm currently looking for a manual for this one. I'm looking for the box of manual for this one, and it's not going to cost me an arm and a leg. It's going to be about $20. So not too worried about that. But the one thing that I've heard of horror stories about the different things with GameStop, especially with the cartridge games, is seeing people say, I bought this, $50, $60 cartridge game, and it was Madden. That somebody had either did a label swap or did a board swap. And I've actually had this before. So somewhere around here, I have a copy of Duke Nukem 64, and it was Madden. The ROM was for Madden. So I've actually purchased that before, and so what I ended up doing was the cartridge actually looked pretty good. Like, it had a good label and everything else. So I found the shittiest looking version of Duke Nukem 64 I could find online. Like one where it's like the label was half gone, it had writing all over the cartridge, and I did a board swap.
Yeah.
So that I had my good label on,
Jim, I have an anecdote related to that when you're done. Remind me.
But anyways, so GameStop, if you're happen to somehow stumble across this, or somebody, the couple things that I would do is, I hate to say it, to take a page out of DK Oldie's book, but if you're listening to these things, like, be honest, like, is it going to have the box with the label if it's going to be a game like GameCube? Because the price, I'm willing to pay more to have have this versus having this, and if it's going to contain the manual or not, just making sure that's clearly stated, and having maybe the options like just the game, with the case, with the manual, all those kinds of things. And if you don't have them in stock, make note of it. And two, your cartridge games, if you have them where you can order them online. I get where the problem comes, because the problem is that if you have it in store, it's hard to sell it online, because you're not going to pull it from the store because it's a used game. But it may be worthwhile to have stuff in stores. And if that's the case, if you're going to have them in store, start getting all the stores to start carrying stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, at least carry the basics. And then if you go in store and they say, hey, I want this game, they can look at other stores and then have it shipped. Something. But was it a terrible experience? No, but I had no clue what I was going to get. And I was pleasantly surprised I at least got one with the label, but and heck, I think even getting the actual GameCube case with the the right size disc holder and everything, versus this one here is just a standard DVD case. So what was your comments on all of that?
Yeah. So first, the anecdote. I actually had a situation where an official product I bought was wrong. It was the movie Fight Club, and the disc that was supposed to have the movie, which you open up the case, it has the right print on it and everything. Fight Club Disc 1. The actual content was the second disc to Independence Day Special Edition. I knew because I already owned that. And I thought, well, this is some kind of joke. It's Fight Club. It's being subversive. It's just something else I got to click or something, If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. No, it was just totally the wrong print on the other side of the disc. So, yeah, I ended up having to buy another copy of the movie. I still have a screwed up one somewhere. Yeah. It's one of those things that's just like, well, I should have expected this to happen at some point, I guess, but I don't even know how this happens. Like, because I would imagine that the disc is on a factory assembly line, encoded, and then label, or whichever way it's got to go. And like for it to have the wrong label, for it to have one label and one encoding, like, I just don't know how it happens. It's literally like flew off the assembly line, and some guy's like, it goes over here,
Yeah,
and then it didn't. You know, I mean, that's the only thing I can figure. Yeah. But to the rest of your point, yeah, I would think that it would be in GameStop's interest for the future of their business to have more information so that you know what you're getting, and maybe even like have a picture, like you're buying, like say it's Ocarina of Time, and they've got 10 copies online. Have pictures of each one. You know, you pick which one you're going to buy. They'll probably have different prices. Like, I wouldn't see what the problem with that would be.
Well, and I think if the bare minimum it says you're at least getting the game, everything else is, you know. And I think, you know, like I said, it should have been cheaper, because if you're not guaranteed anything, it should be the complete box pricing. But
Yeah.
it is GameStop too. I guess they make a little bit of money at the top.
There's that. But also the cartridges should all be tested.
Yeah.
Like, again, I think that's like bare minimum. Like, I don't see how you as a company can sell something to somebody and be like, oh, sorry, that wasn't the right thing, but you're out of luck. Because I'm guessing it's probably really hard to get your money back. Because they're going to be like, well, how do we know you didn't do it? And they've got a point. How do they know? But like, they should have tested it first.
And I just want to make sure it's understood that I want GameStop to actually succeed in this market, because I think that we're seeing too many of these retail stores that just go belly up, and there's just nothing they can do. I mean, you know, I get like Blockbuster, you know, any sort of movie rental. I get that whole thing's dead.
You mean how Blockbuster should have bought Netflix when they had the chance?
Yes, I mean, they died the death that, I mean, there's just nothing, because like, how often do you even go and buy a physical movie these days? It's rare.
I bought Alien Romulus because I wanted a physical disc. And so I held off buying the digital copy because I knew I was just going to buy the Blu-ray with the digital copy.
What?
I consider buying the VHS copy of that because they made them for that movie.
But
I saw it was like $70. I was like, yeah.
And I noticed that Black Friday's starting to phase out their movie sales because people just aren't buying movies anymore.
No.
And I think it's going to go all digital too, where you're going to go to Vudu and buy the digital copy of those movies versus actually owning them.
Well, I mean, I do have hundreds of movies on Vudu, but I also own most of them physically. Plus, I think I can throw this out there. There used to be a workaround for Vudu that might still work. You know, if you own a DVD of a movie, you can scan the barcode, and for like $5, you get the HD version of it in Vudu. Okay? So some people with some serious ingenuity had a master list of the barcodes. So, yeah, there's a few movies I bought that way. But now, for some reason, like, it doesn't recognize, like the option's still there, but my phone like just refuses to recognize the picture. And also, like, even if I use an actual movie, it won't do it. So I know it's not a problem with reading my computer monitor. So I think they've either like deactivated it, but like the feature's still there, or something. Because yeah, there's a bunch of movies like, for $5, like if I watch this movie once, it's worth $5.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of movies that I own that way that I don't own physically. But yeah, physically I own like 650 movies. So some of the other positives, and this is where I actually want to see the whole market develop, and I want to see GameStop take advantage of this as well, is there are manufacturers out there that produce new old games, like new NES games, new Super Nintendo games, new Sega Genesis games, limited run being the big one, and GameStop carries their games, and like I think that's a market that needs to be taken advantage of. I think there's always going to be people out there that's going to want to play these retro games, and I say that obviously probably 50, 60 years from now, that may not be the case, but I don't know, Jim. There's a girl I've seen on Facebook Reels who's got to be like, if it was maybe in her early 20s, but she's like obsessed with the 80s. Has like the giant 80s hair and is constantly like rocking out the 80s music, and she's like, who wouldn't love this generation? So like, no, younger people, like there's things to like about it, and I keep seeing these surveys that say that like the younger generations, I want to say like Gen Z, that they seem to prefer to go to stores to buy things as opposed to buying them online. They want physical things.
Yeah.
And so maybe this is a blip, Well,
and
who knows?
I mean, I guess I could I mean, hell, like the Atari games are almost pushing 50 years old at this point. NES is in the 40-year range.
Mm-hmm.
If you go from 85, you got 40 years right there.
Yeah. The Super Nintendo's what, 35 then? Because 90, 91, somewhere in there.
Yeah, so, and Sega too. So, I mean, it's still around. People still care about it. I mean, so I think new games are going to be fine for a while. I think building stuff to keep that tech running and, fixing it. I think there's a market for that kind of stuff. And I think, obviously with GameStop adapting, I mean, I know it's just their kind of, the retro side of things is just it's a new thing. Like, I think the reason why I was able to get the GameCube games is because they still had inventory.
Yeah.
I mean, you still go to GameStops now and you can still find I still see sometimes random GameCube games, random PlayStation 2. It wasn't even that long ago, and I say that, it's probably been, 10, 15 years ago, that I saw PlayStation 2 games still in Walmart.
Yeah, I mean, probably.
And, I mean, they weren't like new games or anything like that, but it was like some leftovers, some games that were like a bundle pack or whatever. They weren't even clearance. They were just like in the case, just like with the PlayStation games.
Yeah.
Right along PlayStation 3, you'd see like the PlayStation 2 games there.
Well, and then you've got those people that sell systems that I have to assume are of questionable legality. But they're like, oh, there's 2,000 games loaded on this.
Oh yeah, I've got one right up there. The one that's the NES with 620 games loaded on it.
Well, I mean, I mentioned before that I've got a Super Nintendo Mini that I expanded. So right now it has like 3 times the number of games that it had when I bought it. And so, I mean, plus it's these people at conventions that are literally like, they'll tell you up front, like, this has every single Nintendo, Super Nintendo, usually the Genesis, and depending on how much you're willing to pay, like, then it starts getting up in like the PlayStation and some of the other later model systems, or like hundreds of arcade games that never got ported over anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's like $200, or however much, and you'll get a couple controllers, and it hooks up to an HD TV and everything. And I mean, I know people buy those.
Well,
I see people buying them at the conventions, and I know they're buying them online. So like, they might not necessarily have physical games, but they want the games themselves somehow.
Yeah, and I think personally, Nintendo needs to just embrace their heritage, and if they want to start selling more cartridges, selling boards, selling the stuff so people can load their own games. I was doing a little bit of research, and with NES Maker, which is a piece of software you can purchase, there is no, like, with just purchasing the software, you get the rights to distribute, sell whatever you make on it.
Yeah.
And like you get like some assets, you can build your own assets. It's something I want to dabble in and actually try to build my own game.
Yeah.
And if I were ever to get something on there, I think one thing's, if we ever do a store, is I'd put those games out on the store for purchase and all that. I don't know if I'll ever get to it. I started buying some of the hardware. Like, I finally got me my own laptop that I can use. The only laptop I had was my work laptop, so I finally got me a laptop I can use to do my own stuff. 'Cause, I mean, I hadn't bought a computer in forever.
Yeah. I mean,
got this.
I thought about trying to get a MIDI, is that the music file type, to try to make an intro song for the channel that sounds kind of like a Super Nintendo level song. Because I know there's things you can download to make music like that, and I've thought about doing it. I might still at some point. But first, I have to solve our problem of having distant guests on here, because I know Brian for sure would like to be on here. Plus, it'd help us with Chad whenever he can't make it. So,
yep.
So that is the problem I'm trying to tackle at the moment. I guess I should just ask ChatGPT how to handle that problem too.
So, what topics do you have? You said you saw some movies,
Yeah. So I watched a couple movies in theaters recently, and I've done videos on these. Some are fairly brief. Sarah and I went to go watch Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I have no earthly idea like why it was on, because it came out 36 years ago. Not 35, not 40, 36. I think it really was just for Father's Day. Which, if you've seen the movie, you would understand why. If you haven't seen the movie, pause this video and go watch it. It's excellent.
Hey, welcome back.
Yeah, if you did, welcome back. Now, this was put on by Fathom Events that I've mentioned before, and it had an intro by Leonard Maltin, who, for those of you who don't know, he's like a film historian type. And a couple other movies I've gone to watch has had an intro by him. One was Enter the Dragon that Chad and I went to go watch, and The Wizard of Oz last year. And he's got, a bunch of interesting facts about the movie and production and everything. And this one, for instance, talked about how George Lucas and Steven Spielberg wanted to come back to a little bit more of the lighthearted Raiders tone as opposed to the darker tone from Temple of Doom. And one of the ways they convinced Harrison Ford to come back was they had signed Sean Connery to play his dad. And, Sean Connery's a legendary actor, so of course you want to act with him. Even though the two are like less than 20 years apart in age, like they look farther apart in the movie because Sean Connery is starting to go white and everything. But no, he's excellent as Henry Jones Sr., which you find out Indiana's real name is Henry Jones Jr. But
Junior?
Yeah. And then you find out his name comes from the dog, who you do get to see in the beginning of the movie,
Indy.
Yeah.
We named the dog Indy.
Yeah, and Solo's over there. The dog? You are named after the dog. I actually met John Rhys Davies. Chris and I got our pictures taken with him a couple years ago at Comic-Con. Told him about our misadventure trying to get his autograph like 15 years earlier at Gen Con. So, yeah, it was an interesting conversation. But, no, it's an excellent movie, and it's the one of the original three I know I saw in theaters back when it was out, because the other two came out in I want to say 81 and 84, so I would have been like 2.5 whenever the second one came out. But for those of you that don't know, that's why Han Solo winds up frozen in carbonite at the end of Empire Strikes Back. They weren't sure Harrison Ford was going to come back, so then he did, so they had to put the whole Jabba's Palace part in there. But which interesting side note about that. Saw a thing one time about that where Anthony Daniels, who plays C-3PO, was talking, and they were just kind of like, so obviously you got quite the view of Carrie Fisher in the metal bikini, and he's like, well, I didn't, but C-3PO got quite the eyeful. And I was just like, man. But anyway, I thought that was hilarious at the time. Then, but the movie looked really good on the big screen still. There's only like 2 spots because it came out in 89, so that's like the real early CG era, and it's not so much that the CG was bad, but you could tell what was fake and what was being put on screen with it. And that's the scene where the two of them are in a plane flying against German fighter planes. You can tell that they're not in the sky. I mean, you can probably tell from the sound and everything else, but the plane doesn't look right with the background. Jim, you probably know what I'm talking about here. Seeing that transition from practical to digital, the eye, you picked up how to detect it, in movies, because you could tell when it was happening, because you were so used to seeing the practical effects. You could, something's off here. Couldn't quite put your finger on it. And then the other scene is whenever Indy has to do the leap of faith. And even back in '89, I thought that scene didn't look good. Because literally there's a chasm in front of him, and he steps down, then you see that the thing just looks like the chasm, but it looks off. Other than that, the effects in the movie are all held up pretty good. Sarah had never seen it, so she got a text message from someone because she told me that she was going to go watch, and the text message was he chose poorly, and she's like, "What's that mean?" I go, "Oh, you'll understand by the end of the movie." And he did choose poorly, and you will see the results of said poor choice. So yes, Donovan chose very poorly. Also, from watching it more recently, I think Elsa intentionally told him wrong. Because that scene, because she's the one that picks the cup, because he's like, well, I'm not a historian, I don't know what it would look like. And she picks one, and as he's drinking, it cuts to her, and the look on her face is screw you, buddy. And Indy looks at her and is and I think Indy figured out that she intentionally screwed him. So yeah, I think she did, because having watched it again, Elsa, I don't know where her loyalties ultimately were.
I think it was just for herself.
I think it was, because obviously she throws in with the Nazis. But there at the book burning, she's legitimately crying because a learned person, doesn't like seeing what's happening. And I never, fully grasped the interplay of what they say to each other whenever he catches her to get the book back. Whenever he's all I have to do is squeeze to kill her. And she's and all I have to do is scream to screw you. And she doesn't. She lets him walk away with the book. So I don't think she's 100% on Team German Socialists. But
yeah.
I mean, that's one of those But if you're only like 90% on the team, you're still like 100% on the team.
So,
But at the end, she's clearly just using Donovan.
yeah.
So I don't know. It's one of those like, was she just an opportunist? But again, like an opportunist that threw in with, literally the worst of humanity. But yeah. But also there's one other thing. And I've tried to record a video kind of talking about this, but I can't quite phrase it properly, so I'm going to make an attempt here. I notice whenever people talk about villains in movies, I see discussion online where people seem to want the hero to just completely dunk on them. And I'm like, okay, I expect the hero to win, but the villain has to actually be a credible threat, or the hero didn't actually do anything heroic. And so I think, like, if you look at the Indiana Jones movies, like this one in particular, now, several of the Nazis are taken out in almost comical manner, but a couple of them are not. Like the one SS guy that he's fighting on top of the tank. Like, he was clearly a real threat. He's presented as a serious threat. There's no comical side to him. But then you also have, like, where Jones, like, fires the gun and shoots, like, 3 of them at a time, and it's like that's comical, But we're also shown that, like, no, collectively they are not a comical threat. They are a genuine threat. And so, sometimes you don't see that in movies. And I think that's, to talk about some other movies I talk about a lot, that's a big problem with the sequel trilogy in Star Wars, is both Kylo Ren and General Hux are made to be non-threats by the way they're dealt with. So by the third movie, neither of them are a threat, So they have to bring back Palpatine. Because in the first movie, Rey beats Kylo Ren in the lightsaber fight. And, I mean, there's circumstances, obviously, but, like, it should have never happened. And then the second movie, whenever Snoke just throws Hux around, like, from that point forward, he was no threat at all. Like, even after the first movie, where he gives his spectacular speech there aboard the Starkiller base, like, he was a threat there. Like, this was clearly a man devoted to the First Order and was going to do anything. And, this was a man to be taken seriously. And then he's neutered, like, 5 minutes into The Last Jedi. He's a non-threat after that. There's no possible way for his character to recover, except maybe shooting Kylo Ren in the back whenever he's down. But, like, that wasn't going to happen, because then Kylo Ren would be no threat, and that would have a narratively unsatisfying ending. So, you see these movies, and it's like, yeah, there's some comedy, but, like, the Nazis are not taken as a light threat. Like, they're presented as a genuine threat.
So, I was looking at my Super Nintendo games. I think I've got it, but I think I've got for Indiana Jones on the Super Nintendo. Because at the end of The Last Crusade, you fight the corpse of Donovan. He's like he's like a skeleton corpse that's like possessed.
Yeah, I mean, from that point forward in the movie, there is no threat. Like, what's it going to be? Convince Elsa not to cross the seal with the Grail? But that was also a far more impactful scene, watching that as an older person. Seeing the earlier scene where Senior thinks he's lost Indiana, thinks he went over the cliff with the tank. And just that realization that, like, the whole, like, my God, like, I never got to tell him anything. It's like, it would have taken 5 minutes. Just realizing that, like, his relationship with his son was so damaged, I
just like when Indy walks up beside him.
And he's just kind of like... But then, like, at the end of at the end of the movie, Senior's whole life has been about getting the Grail. Indy literally has it in his fingertips. Like he's touching it. And Senior tells him, just let it go. He's like, it's just a thing. You're what, we are where it matters. Like, that's, whatever. And especially to Jones, who also has that drive, because he's got the Ark of the Covenant and all the other things, at this point, to have his dad, who he knows is obsessed over this thing, to tell him it's not important. Just, let it go. And that changing character. And I wish Connery would have come back for the fourth movie and it would have been different, and they could have followed up with some of that. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a hater of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I think it's an okay movie. And I said in the review, I don't think the fridge protected Jones. I think Jones protected the fridge.
Yeah. Well, he drank from the
Grail, channeled the power of Shiva from the Shankara stones to defeat Molaram, survived the Ark of the Covenant. Like I said, if a bullet would have just bounced off of him with no explanation, I'd have been fine with it. And I don't hate the fifth one either. I thought the fifth one was all right. It's not great, but it's all right.
Well, they were trying to set up that girl to be the next.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been down for that.
I mean, that's what
I would have been more inclined to watch Shia LaBeouf, but apparently he died when I went to the bathroom.
Yeah,
I apparently went to the bathroom right as they explained that when I watched the movie the first time. I don't remember who I was watching it with, but I asked him, I was like, so anything happened when I was going to the bathroom? No. And later on, I'm like, hey, so something did happen while I was in the bathroom you didn't tell me about. Like, thanks. I don't remember who it was offhand. But yeah, it's an excellent movie if you haven't seen it. I mean, I think all the Indiana Jones movies are entertaining. I do think the original 3 are better than the last 2. But I don't think they're terrible movies. It's not like the Star Wars sequels where I just absolutely hate them. And even there, it's only 2 of them. I can admit that The Force Awakens was at least okay, just as a terrible sequel to the others. But so the other movie I went to go watch was 28 years later. And I should note, it is in fact only 23 years since the first movie came out. But who's counting? That movie was really good. That's surprising. I like the other 2, but like this was a whole other animal entirely. This is not zombie survival. This is very much a different kind of movie that just happens to be set during that. And it's setting up for more movies. So, and I hope it does go forward. Excellent acting all the way around. I thought the choice of the child actor, I don't know his name off the top of my head, it was a really good choice on their part because he is basically the main character. Although, like if it would have come down to it, Ray Fiennes could have done the acting for everybody because he's excellent. Aaron Taylor Johnson did a decent job. And I don't know the name of the woman offhand. She's the main character in Killing Eve, or the Eve character in Killing Eve. I never watched the show. But she's in it too. There's only like 4 characters worth noting. There are other characters, but they're the only ones worth talking about.
Well, there's one that I see posted online where people are talking about some zombie scene. They're like, I guess, is just full, like.
Oh, well, okay. So,
because I hear people going, like, when that zombie scene comes on, the people are like, you know.
Yeah, like, there's no other way to put this. You're going to be seeing some zombie junk in this movie. More than once. like Danny Boyle, I guess, just like, you know what? We're just going balls out, literally. Like, and they're all, like, there are now different kinds of the infected, because super technically they're not zombies. They're not dead. They are still living. They're infected with a rage virus that just drives them to ultra violence. And the first movie implies that they're all going to die because they're still living and aren't smart enough to eat or drink, so they will eventually just die. This movie corrects that and shows them eating and drinking. So just out of pure instinct. That's how they're still, 20 years later, that's how it's still infected people in Britain, because they should have all died by now. And so some of them got turned into alphas. They're bigger, stronger, harder to bring down, and apparently also hung like a horse. Like, I don't know, talk to Danny Boyle, but that's the way it worked. And there's a lot of nudity in this movie because, like, you know, zombies would not have clothes after a certain point. They'd be destroyed. And, well, that's what happens. So there's a lot of nudity in this movie. Male and female nudity. A lot of boobs hanging out. You know, there's one of them gives birth at one point. Like
the zombie person.
Oh, yeah. This movie, it goes places.
Was the baby immediately already a zombie?
No, the baby was not infected. That was actually a key plot point because they were all surprised at that, except for Ray Fiennes' character, who was like, well, yeah, you know, the internal immune system of the mother, like, I kind of wondered if that was going to happen. However, I don't know if we're supposed to assume that she was pregnant, then got infected, or if the alpha impregnated her. Because, again, we keep seeing the shots of the fact the alpha could definitely do the job. So, yeah. And the alpha was very pissed whenever she got killed after the birth. Because, like, while she was giving birth, she was calm. But then, like, once the kid was out, she was back to rage zombie mode. And, you know, they just took her out. So, yeah, complicated movie. But I thought it was a very good movie. Really only, like, the last 2 or 3 minutes where things get, like, just truly bizarre with, like, something I assume I don't understand because I'm not English. May as well throw some spoilers out here. Like, a bunch of people in, like, Adidas wear show up and just start beating up the zombies like there's some kind of weird street gang from London. Like, I don't know. I think they were supposed to be color-coded like the Power Rangers, literally, because, like, at the beginning of the movie, there's a kid who, like, has a Power Ranger figure and doesn't take it with him or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm conflating 2 of the kids. And it's like a character we saw at the very beginning of the movie as a kid. Now we see him now, like, not as a kid anymore. I'm assuming this is to jump into the next movie. I don't know. So that part aside, excellent movie. That part was just weird.
That sounds about as weird as when in Rain of Fire when Matthew McConaughey shows up.
Oh, Rain of Fire. There's a blast from the past.
And it's just like, you got a bunch of British people who are reenacting Star Wars. And,
oh, yes, the great epic.
And then they're like, hey, there's somebody flying in the sky, a helicopter, and it's the Americans for some reason.
Yeah. Isn't the guy that plays Dr. Bashir on Deep Space Nine, he's in that, isn't he? I think he's one of the people there at the castle. I think. It's been a long time since I saw that movie. Oh, man.
We need to revisit it.
Yeah, I think I just watched it the one time in theaters. Mainly because the trailer had that really terrible CGI scene where Matthew McConaughey is jumping like axe first into the dragon's mouth.
Yeah,
and it's like clearly, obviously fake background, like super bad.
And well, it ends like it should end with him dying immediately.
Yeah, I mean it was a total kamikaze attack, but
which makes me wonder. It's like, what was even the purpose of it? I mean, he knew nothing was going to come out of that. I mean, yeah, he could have just jumped off the tower and broke his legs, but I guess he.
Yeah, I don't know what he was going for there, but.
Now you're talking about something earlier that maybe you're talking about CGI. You're talking about CGI in The Last Crusade, and we always go back and forth to Star Wars. And I was just a thought that came to my mind about the special edition, especially in A New Hope, where they for whatever reason added CGI in a spot that never needed CGI, and that was in the final battle with the Death Star. Against the Death Star, like. The ship flying in that held up so well, and when they replaced the approach of the X-wings with a digital whatever,
yeah,
it looked terrible. Like the scene looked good in the first place. It's like I don't even know why the hell they changed it.
Yeah, the one change that I seriously dislike is actually like the second round of special edition stuff. I think it's the second round, where they add it's in Return of the Jedi. Where the Emperor's electrocuting Luke and they add Vader, like no. It's like no, that destroys the scene. Like John Williams' music does everything that needs to be done. Like Vader doesn't have to say anything. We see him look at Luke, we see him look at the Emperor, look at Luke, look at the Emperor, decide pruning face is going down. Like the music does everything that needs to be done in that scene. It's one of those like, George, your movies are damn near perfect. Like, why did you screw that up? It's like the problem I have with The Two Towers. The only singular problem I have with the trilogy is at the end, whenever they're in the main keep and getting ready to ride out, Aragorn looks over at the window and it repeats Gandalf's line. No, that was terrible. You just destroyed the tension of that scene. Have Aragorn look over there, see the sunrise, and either you were paying attention earlier or you were in for one hell of a surprise. Either way, it works. But you destroyed the narrative tension. Have them ride out like this is it, and then they look and there's Gandalf, and Éomer in the Rohirrim, have it be a surprise, or if you were paying attention, you know what's coming. It was a terrible editorial choice.
There's a lot of the special edition stuff that I'm just like.
Yeah, I mean, like the thing with Jabba. There's no way to make that look good, but where Han has to go around behind him, steps over his tail and everything.
And all they would have to do is just in that moment is just
cut away to something else.
Cut away to Chewbacca going. Yeah. But I mean, I like the fact that they added it in. It just looked bad. Yeah. I also do like the approach to Mos Eisley. I thought that was kind of cool to actually show a little bit of the cityscape, so that it's not just hey, there's just a cantina out here. That's all Mos Eisley is, the cantina. But
yeah, I mean there's parts of the special editions I'm totally fine with, where they clean up the effects on the Hoth battle by removing the black outlines and everything. I'm fine with them adding the CG for the Sarlacc pit to make it look a little more something. That's fine.
Yeah, but no, I can say the X-wings, if they wanted to add a couple more X-wings digitally in the background to make things look a little bit better. Same thing with Return of the Jedi, when the TIE fighters are flying in, instead of them just appearing out of nowhere. If they were we're going to add digital back here, and then have them morph into, them flying. Because, I mean, regardless, if you can make practical effects look realistic, the way that they fly, it's always going to be superior to what computer generated can do.
Yeah, and I'm fine with altering the explosions to both of the Death Stars, adding the ring. You know, that's fine. I can live with that.
Yeah, it's funny, the way that they originally did that was just they put the camera down on the ground, filmed the explosion above it, and the particle effects dripping down to the camera.
There you go.
That's how you get.
But yeah, no, I'm good with those things. I'm trying to think what else they added. What I'd actually like to see, and I know this won't
The
ever
musical
happen.
number.
No, I'd like to see him actually make a handful of alterations to the prequel trilogy.
Redo the entire Battle of Geonosis.
Well, I mean, there's that.
Do
No,
like-
I'd like to see a scene added to Revenge of the Sith where Anakin at least mentions Ahsoka. You know, make it so it's clear this is after she's left the Order. You know, and it'd be a new scene they'd have to film and everything. You know, and it'd just be one more thing to show why he doesn't want to trust the Council. You know, to remind him like they were willing to throw her under the bus for very flimsy reasons, and she left the Order over it. Like, and tried to convince him to go too because she knew. But like, you know, a scene like that, a few other scenes here and there, you know, just to add some things that we now have context for from the later movies, but we still have all the actors here, you know, or most of them because we've already lost, you know, Christopher Lee. So, but you know, some things like that. Maybe add the Plagueis scene to the Phantom Menace, where Palpatine takes out Plagueis, you know, and a couple scenes to show who he is and everything, you know. That would be very cool. But you know, just some things like that, you know, just things that would actually enhance the movie. You know, now that we have a bunch of this other lore out there, you know, maybe show Quinlan Vos in Revenge of the Sith, you know, giving the report, you know, because they talk about it.
No, I can say with Attack of the Clones, the biggest thing is just every bit of CGI in that movie is rough. And it's funny because you look at the Phantom Menace and the CGI doesn't look as rough in Phantom Menace because they've used more practical effects.
Yeah.
Even the waterfalls in Naboo are a practical effect.
I don't believe that.
I believe it's just salt.
Huh. Wow. I know that Liam Neeson cost him like $100,000 in set construction because everything above the height of the tallest actor, which is him, is CG.
Yeah.
That's what people don't appreciate about the Phantom Menace. Is loaded with CG. But because of his height compared to everyone else, because of being so much taller, they had to build the sets taller. So yeah.
And I say, unfortunately, you can't rewrite the dialogue between Padme and Anakin in the Attack of the Clones.
Or can you?
That need to. That whole, you know, I talk about CGI, even the freaking floating pear scene.
Yeah, that scene was rough. That scene, Anakin on the back of the giant animal thing. Is that supposed to be a Nerf, by the way?
A Nerf herder?
Yeah, like is that supposed to be is that what he's supposed to be on? But yeah, that looks a little sketchy. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Convince Hayden Christensen and
Ewan McGregor?
Well, they already got him back, but Natalie Portman. But like, look, guys, we're going to de-age you a little bit, but like, we're going to actually do this scene some justice here. This is kind of an important scene.
You know, in that movie, the arena scene actually didn't look all that bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought they did the Geonosians right, and I thought it looked good. It's just, as soon as you stepped out of the arena, it's like
into the battlefield, into the PlayStation cutscene.
Into the PlayStation cutscene, it looked awful. I mean, and I get it. It's like he wanted to push the limits of, you know, computer generated. He wanted to have an unreasonable amount of, but you know, I think it was in the it was in New Hope when Vader lands on the Death Star, that there's only like a handful of people there, that's a matte painting of the stormtroopers.
You mean in Return of the Jedi?
Was it?
Yeah, because they don't have a landing scene in the New Hope.
Okay, so yeah, Return of the Jedi. As I said, I couldn't think of exactly where it was at, but yeah, it's where the shuttle lands and there's like a whole army of people and they like walk up. There's only like a handful of people, like 10, 15 people maybe in that whole scene. The rest of it's just a matte painting that's in front of the camera.
Well, if I remember right, so it's the same
or like
on
glass or whatever.
It's the same on Bespin. After they open the doors and Vader's there and the stormtroopers filling behind them, but once the stormtroopers are there, from that point forward, I believe that's just a matte painting also, because that's what the Stormtroopers don't move after that. But like it still looks.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know the Emperor scene is definitely a matte painting and some other stuff there. Yeah. Yeah, and if they were to monkey around with the original trilogy anymore, the one scene I would kind of like is
More musical numbers.
It's in Shadows of the Empire. It's where 3PO goes by the door where they have a couple wampas in the base, and he opens it, he tears the label off, then the Imperials open it up and get murdered, presumably.
Yes, one gets ripped in, they kind of go.
Yeah, like I like that being put back in would be good, but yeah, I don't know.
Speaking of that, I saw a thing where I guess I can't think what his name, Prowse.
David Prowse.
Yes, they actually filmed Return of the Jedi scene with him being the one that's under the helmet reveal.
Oh, really?
Yes, and it was only allowed to be shown in a private screening, could not be shown to anybody else. And and he's like, well, at least it made me feel like I had a little bit of justice, because it's honestly it's a kind of a shitty thing. It should have been him.
Yeah, because I know he didn't know his voice was being replaced until he saw the movie. He was notably upset at that. But also, if you watch the movie, his timing is different. You can, like, the big scene you can notice is whenever Vader comes to tell Tarkin that Obi-Wan is there. After he's done talking, Vader's still, like, gesturing because it took David Prowse longer to say the lines.
I mean, and don't get me wrong, they made the right decision, unless they would have digitally altered his voice to...
Yeah, it was the same like Darth Maul. Like, if you've ever heard Ray Park's voice, like, no. He is not intimidating. And if you want to hear Ray Park's voice, watch the X-Men movie. He plays Toad. That's his actual voice. Instead, they got, I don't know his name, but the only other thing I've seen him in is Shaun of the Dead. He is, have you seen Shaun of the Dead?
Yeah.
He's the kind of asshole-ish roommate. That's Darth Maul's voice. Yeah. Now, I think although except in Solo, it's Sam Witwer's voice now, because he took over for the animated series.
I like Sam Witwer. He I seen a video of him where I guess I can't remember, it was one of the people with the sequel trilogy, or they were talking about the Clone Wars or whatever, and they were like playing out this whole scene, and he's like, hold up a minute, he's like, we got to redo that, and they're like, why? They said, well, you stated that Padme is meeting.
Yeah, it's like Anakin was like, I wish me would have been able to meet Padme, and he's like, but she did in the Phantom Menace. And they're like, did you just out Filoni Dave? Which, I don't know. I'm given to understand that's actually not hard to do, but Dave Filoni, I shouldn't be super critical because he's made good stuff, but like, he takes a very different view to canon that you cannot take, and it's that, well, it's all from a certain point of view, and it's like, no, we all know that was just Obi-Wan covering the fact he was lying. You cannot take that perspective. It's an outside omniscient view. Or it's R2-D2 telling everyone the story 1,000 years from now, which George Lucas apparently has endorsed that idea. So, but it's an omniscient viewpoint. You can't start going, and you can't have 11 movies, several TV series, and then all of a sudden go with an unreliable narrator. It does not work that way. You have to start with the unreliable narrator if you're going to use it, and that's why Dave needs to be someone there to tell Dave no. That man might be Sam Witwer. Person. It can be a woman, but I'm just saying. It's definitely not Kathleen Kennedy. No. On that note, as I was telling Jim here before we started recording, I thought about this after our Star Wars episode, and I think some of us, I don't think we're being too harsh on Disney, but I think an objective look is that they've made more good stuff than bad stuff. At least as far as the live action stuff. I don't know about comics and books. I refuse to engage in another EU after they nuked the last one. But it's just that the sequel trilogy is so bad that it taints everything else from our viewpoint. Because like I think we both agreed that Ahsoka was decent. Mm-hmm. It's definitely watchable. It feels like Star Wars, even if there's some canon things here and there, but it feels like Star Wars. And Baylan Skoll was an interesting character.
Yeah, the whole Dark Jedi side of things, he wasn't really I don't even know if he's a Dark Jedi. I think he was more
Yeah, I think he's more of a gray Jedi. Like we'll see, and unfortunately, it won't be Ray Stevenson, which really sucks because he was really good. And then like, 2/3 of the Mandalorian was good, and it's not like the third season was trash. It just wasn't as good as the other two. Obi-Wan had some lows, but it also had some really good highs. It should have been a movie. The Acolyte was trash. Book of Boba Fett could have been better.
Yes.
Let's go with that. And then Andor was excellent. Rogue One is excellent. Solo is really good. It is good. But then there's the sequel trilogy, and like that's like the lodestone that's dragging everything down. And I think like an objective analysis, at least from how we feel in the movies and shows, would say that Disney has done more good than bad. It's just that the bad is really, really bad.
Well, when the bad is your anchor point.
Yeah, and that's the problem, and that's why they haven't made more movies. We all know this, even though the 3 movies made tons of money. But like we all know that they know the public perception is bad because they can see the ratings for the shows. They're dropping, and that's not good because again, Andor was excellent, but no one's watching it to give it its chance. And in a lot of ways, it doesn't feel like what people consider Star Wars. It's not the daring-do action adventure of A New Hope. It is very much like the low gritty points of like Empire Strikes Back and Rogue One. Like that's where it is. There's the mentions of the Force are few and far between in that show, but it's a great show. And then like, again, I think the Acolyte is trash, but it had its audience. People donated money to put an ad in Times Square, which they put up, by the way. Hashtag Save the Acolyte. But yeah, like, and just the desperation I see in people for that. Like, these AI articles keep popping up. Like, well, maybe it was more popular than it was. Like, no, you're just a stupid AI. You don't know what you're talking about. And it gives people false hope. And I do feel bad for them, the people that actually enjoyed it. Because I think it's trash, but I'm not going to sit here and say another season shouldn't be made just because I didn't like it. There are people that did, and I do genuinely feel bad for them. Now, the shills, I don't feel bad for them at all. But, the people that genuinely like it, I do feel bad for them. And so, I mean, on balance, you kind of have to admit that Kathleen Kennedy had more hits than misses here, But, like, where they missed, they really missed. And it was, like, fundamental things like planning the trilogy before you make it.
Yes.
Not hiring J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson. It's very simple things.
Well, it should have been one person with a unified view. And I mean, the original trilogy, I think, had different directors.
They had different directors, and George had writers help him, but I don't think he had it planned out like he claims he did. I think he had an idea of where things were going to go. And I'm given to understand that the actual endpoint was always supposed to be the Death Star, but he wasn't sure he was going to be able to make the second and third movie, so he put it into the first movie. That's why when they get to the third movie, he's like, well, what the hell are we going to do now? And just build another Death Star. Which unfortunately set the tone for, what we're going to do, just make a planet-sized Death Star, because J.J. Abrams is creatively bankrupt. And it's just like, I mean, don't get me wrong, J.J. Abrams makes some entertaining movies, and he definitely apes from one of the best in the business whenever he tries to copy Steven Spielberg. I mean, if you're going to copy from the best, and Spielberg is there.
Well, and I mean,
but Spielberg's who I would have tried to get to make the movies.
And he did the 2009 Star Trek, right?
Yeah, he did the
lens flare.
Lens flare, the movie. He made the Kelvin timeline.
But I will give him credit. Him doing that reinvigorated Star Trek. I mean, don't get me wrong. I get where people have their criticism of that series. I mean, it's more of an action series than it is.
Did you ever watch the Red Letter Media coverage of those Star Trek movies? Okay, so they go through the original 6 and the Next Generation movies, and then they made one for the Abrams movie, and they were very critical of the other movies. But one of their biggest criticisms of the Next Generation movies was they never committed to, are they going to be Star Trek movies or are they going to be action movies? And they said point blank, look, I might not agree with all the choices, but this movie committed to action. It didn't try to be a Star Trek movie. It's an action movie that happens to have Star Trek traffics. It committed. And so, it's a competently made movie. And I like the 3 movies, And I've seen at least one of J.J. Abrams' more original movies, Super 8. I thought was really good. It's not that he lacks talent; it's that he doesn't. He says he's a Star Wars fan, and I believe that he is. but he doesn't understand why the original trilogy works. He just sees what's in it and doesn't have beyond the surface level understanding. And that's a problem, because then you're just going to copy what you see and you don't understand the significance of what's in it. And so that's what brings you back to, well, let's just have the Empire and the Rebellion again. And you could have even done that if you followed the EU, because there's still an Imperial remnant and there's the New Republic. You could have done the same damn thing, just better.
Well, that's what you got with within Star Trek. That's what you got with Star Trek Into Darkness.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally just the Wrath of Khan repackaged.
Instead of the Genesis, you had the Vengeance as the...
Yeah, and I mean, and again, like I said, if you're going to copy from the best, because Wrath of Khan is the best Star Trek movie.
But the problem is that Star Trek Into Darkness is the worst of all of them.
Yeah, I mean, I like the third one for the fact it tried to be something original. It felt like a long episode of the show, and it referenced some stuff from the Enterprise era. And it did some original things. I would have liked to have seen more of that. Well, I hoped there was going to be a fourth one.
I like the one comment, and I was watching a review of that talking about the good and the bad, and they were talking about in Star Trek Beyond, they're like, what is this? This isn't even a nebula. They're talking about this nebula. It's an asteroid field. Yeah, and they're like, and it's right outside of Yorktown, which is this giant glass globe in space.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I'm really torn on the whole, on our, not space stations, what do they call them? I mean, it is a space station, but they had a name for it.
Space Dock?
Yeah, Star Dock, star bases. That's what they're called. How in the original movies, it's a big metal construction. You can probably understand how most of it's supposed to work. This is that's a big snow globe. It's waiting to be smashed by a rock. What's going on here?
And it's in right outside of an asteroid field,
full of rocks, but as asteroid fields tend to be.
But you're telling me that they built this giant thing, never went exploring through this nebula to find this other planet just sitting on the other side of it, and all of the plot things that had to happen to get that artifact onto this Enterprise. And if you take all that aside and just say that the artifact was always on there, it was something that Kirk had picked up and he found out about it.
You mean kind of the contrived way that B4 winds up on the Enterprise in Nemesis? By the way, I like Nemesis. I know a lot of people hate it, but I like it.
You didn't. Well, it's better than Insurrection.
Well, that's true.
Insurrection was just another Next Generation episode.
Yeah.
As a Next Generation episode, it would have been fine. I don't think it was a movie.
Yeah.
I mean, except for the when Riker got to control the Enterprise with the joystick.
Well, I mean, he could have waited a movie and could have convinced Picard to let him drive the dune buggy. I like Nemesis, but man, that part was so bad.
Now, what they should have done is when Riker was on the planet living with Deanna, they should have had the buggy out there. That was how he got around.
There we go.
So he could finally have that.
Yeah.
But
because that gave us what we all wanted, horny 50-year-old characters.
But it's just going to show, though, not really having and that's what I liked about Star Trek. Star Trek did not have to have a continuous story. It never really did, except for
2, 3, and 4.
2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, although when I rewatched them, there are threads of a storyline, but you don't have to have it. And a lot of it really has to do with the Enterprise is constantly under construction. I think it's not until Star Trek 6 that it's finally done. In the other, it's always being repaired in the other movies until they blow it up in the third one.
Yeah.
Then it's being retrofitted from the other ship.
I'll tell you what. That was one of the few scenes where an inanimate object brought a tear to my eye. Seeing the destruction of the Enterprise.
God knows, what have I done?
I mean, that line just...
Yeah.
That line gets me. But no, I bring that up, though, because you can have these people that don't really know as much about the content reinvigorate something. And what's nice about Star Trek is you're in our universe. Speaking of that, I did see a thing that said supposedly Earth is in the Star Wars galaxy.
I read the comments on that. A lot of the comments are you people have no idea what the hell you're talking about. Because per canon, humans started on Coruscant, not whatever planet they're talking about.
Yeah.
And they're like...
Urath?
Yeah, and they were like, look, guys, what part of long time ago in a galaxy far, far away are you not getting here? And then it's some contrived, and then it got shoved over here, and it's no, that's not Earth. Just stop.
I thought that was... But anyway, so the thing is that because of the way that Star Wars is laid out, it can't be like a Star Trek. Star Trek is episodic. You have you have a beginning and an end, and then another story picks up. It's not the continuation. I mean, it's a continuation of the same crew, but it's not a continuation of the same story. It's a new thread, a new thing. Like we said, the original
until you get to Deep Space Nine.
The original 6, yes, 2, 3, and 4 follow right after each other, but like you said, not one is dependent upon the other one. There's not something in 2 besides Spock dying that makes 3, because you don't know anything about the fact that Mark.
I think so. Kirk's son.
Yeah, that used proto matter or whatever in Genesis, because in what you saw in the small scale, Genesis worked because but in the larger scale, he had to use unstable substance. You didn't have to have all that story. And then there's not a continuation that has to have each thing fed into it. Now, with Star Wars though, it's supposed to be the Skywalker, whatever. It's a continuous story. The jump from Return of the Jedi to Force Awakens is great because you can. That's why Force Awakens is honestly the best of the sequel trilogy, because a lot of that stuff can be just implied. It can be said. It can be
Yeah, you've got like almost 30 years. Well, it's close to 30 years to work with. To be like, yeah, things change.
Yeah, but then after that, like you said, there was no plan. There was no plan from after the Force Awakens that the Last Jedi was going to happen. I mean, there was going to be this is going to happen. And none of the other Star Wars movies, I don't think, followed so closely to the previous one. Because The Last Jedi was literally like, oh yeah, we just ended Force Awakens here.
Yeah, because the original trilogy, it used to be that there was 3 years between each movie.
Yeah.
Then they shortened Empire to Jedi to being 1 year. But between A New Hope and Empire is still 3 years. So the original trilogy covers like 4 years of time. And there's huge jumps. And the prequels, there's huge jumps in between them. But these, to your point, like 8 literally picks up right where 7 ended.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There was, and it didn't need to. There was no point, because they knew that their base was already lost. But I mean, after Starkiller base was destroyed, the First Order, yes, they're going to want to try to retaliate, but they're going to have to get together. They don't know what the hell they're going to go face.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, it'd be like if Empire picked up with like the Second Battle of Yavin, where the Imperial fleet shows up to find out what the hell happened to the Death Star. And it doesn't. So
yeah. Could you imagine if that's where the Empire Strikes Back picked up, was just the Battle of Yavin?
Yeah, it'd be something. Definitely a more compressed timeline. Now, I do argue that they could make a movie there. I think it'd have to be animated at this point.
Yeah.
Because, you're going to use the voice actors of everyone that's still alive, which is mainly Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford. And they have the digital voice of James Earl Jones for Vader, so because he sold the rights to all that. But I think that would be an interesting movie, showing the Empire kind of figuring out what they're going to do, trying to figure out who the rebels are. Whenever Vader realizes who the pilot was, because it's well before he talks to the Emperor. Like, he already knows who it is.
That actually makes me think of that video you sent me, where it was like the guy talking about all of all the random stuff. Like, well, why didn't they just fire the Death Star through the gas giant of Yavin? And then he's like, well, if you looked at this one thing, you'd see that the recharge rate is like a 24-hour recharge on it, and
Well, it's that.
If you looked at this back of a box of cereal from
Yeah.
you would have found out this fact.
This is on a Topps trading card in 1978 on the backside. Yeah, I mean, there's some things you just have to assume there's a reason, like that. It's probably the recharge rate, or it's they don't want to fire that close to the gas giant because it might also take out the Death Star, because we don't know. Like, we've seen on screen what happens when you fire that thing at a gas giant, We just have to assume that there's a reason.
Yeah. And not just plot convenience.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but that's also like other things people have come to assume about the movies. Like the whole, stormtroopers can't hit anything. Yes, they can. Like, watch the first movie again. The only thing they don't hit is when they're trying to escape the Death Star, when they're letting them go. Like, they took out the Sandcrawler just fine. Took out Aunt May and Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru just fine.
Yeah.
Like, the TIE fighter pilots took out almost all of the fighters that came to attack the Death Star. Like, the Empire clearly has competent personnel. Then the Empire Strikes Back, they were there to kick ass and take names, and that's what they were doing. Like, the rebels were not stopping the Empire on Hoth. You know, like, it's just the internet, from the few times that it's like, no, the Empire is intentionally letting them go. Like, even on Endor, the first round is them letting them get to a certain point and then ambushing them. You know, and then after that, it's, you know, they didn't anticipate the Ewoks helping, and the Ewoks were, you know, we're supposed to. There's some things we're supposed to assume.
Well, that one poor Imperial wasn't expecting Han to throw a bag of detonators at him.
Yeah, that poor guy. The Wilhelm scream. But yeah, like, no, the Empire is quite competent. Like, they control the galaxy. Like, incompetent people don't control galaxies. Like, it's that simple. And you see that in Andor, by the way. Like, stormtroopers can definitely hit things in that show. Like, I especially liked, it's in like the first 3 episodes of season 2. One of them actually stops and takes aim and kills a named character. And it's just like, yeah, you know, they can shoot. Or in Rogue One, the Death Troopers, like, those guys were just kicking ass and taking names all over the place. They took out several named characters. Yeah, like, no, the Empire should be depicted as competent, you know, because again, that makes them an actual threat, which means it's a greater heroic achievement of overcoming them. It's not like I see some people say, like, oh, you want to glorify the Empire, you're just a fascist. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like, get a life. Like, no, it's a matter of, like, in fiction, if your villain is competent and powerful and your hero overcomes them, it's a greater heroic effort. You know, they are a greater hero as a result.
Well, yeah, because you don't... I mean, even if you look at villains in history, I'm not going to go and mention anything, but if you look at villains and villainous armies of, you know, our history, you know, the only reason that they were stopped is because people had to come together and say, these people are too... They're too powerful. They're too all of these things. They're not because they're incompetent. If they're incompetent, they would, you know,
they wouldn't make it very far.
I mean, you know, minus trying to invade Russia in the middle of winter.
Well, yeah, that was a colossal strategic blunder. But yeah, I mean, even just looking at that particular example, like Germany. This is not in any way, shape, or form to glorify Germany in the 40s and 30s, but like, they went from, like, destitute to being able to basically take on Europe, like, collectively, to a point of at least a standstill. Like, again, that's not any way to glorify anything, but, like, that's why they were, you know, that's why they were considered a threat, you know. And then there's all the other stuff to make them villainous,
yes,
supremely villainous. I mean, they're you know, the upper commander scum. Like, I'm not going to defend them in any way, shape, or form. No. But, like, you know, you have them. You have, you know, from our own history, you know, when we overthrew the British rule, you know, the British were this globe, literally the sun never set on the British Empire. It was that vast that at some point, at any time during the day, the sun was shining on part of their empire. Like, that's impressive, you know? And we were like, no thanks. By the way, thank you, France, for your aid in this endeavor. Like, couldn't have done it without you. And, like, you know, we assign villainous intent, you know, because, you know, we've got to prop up our own mythology. You watch movies like The Patriot, where the guy Bruce Willis kills in that, historically, that's not how he died. Jason Isaacs' character, he actually survived.
You mean Mel Gibson in that?
No, I mean, I'm talking the bad guy.
Well, I know, but I meant you said Bruce Willis.
Did I say Bruce Willis?
Yes,
Gibson. Mel Gibson. Bruce Willis, he fights Hans Gruber. At Nakatomi Plaza on Christmas Eve. He didn't die there. He survived and stayed in the colonies and, like, became a farmer. And Mel Gibson's character is like an amalgamation, like three different people in history, and, you know, so yeah, like, to your point, like, you know, these groups, these powerful people, you know, usually takes a group to stop them.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's because they are competent or powerful or both, you know, or again, like, looking at going really far back, the Persian Empire, you know, whenever they tried to invade Greece and Sparta, you know, they hit a bit of a roadblock. Now, by the way, the movie 300, like, grossly oversimplifies that. Like, there was, like, a couple thousand Athenians also helping, It wasn't just the Spartans, and
in their abs.
Yes, yes. But yeah, it was such a demoralizing defeat, because you got Xerxes and the Persian Empire literally has 1 million soldiers. Like in ancient times, like that's an unstoppable juggernaut of an army, and 300 guys utilizing geography brought them to a standstill, and it was just so demoralizing that allowed everyone else to rally to fight them and push them back. Although I'm given to understand, like, they had pretty good reason for invading, because I guess the Greeks were like really meddling in their internal affairs, and they were finally like, "That's enough of this. We are coming to put you guys down." So, yeah.
But the whole moral of this story is that just because we talk about the empire being, deadly accurate, being, a force to reckon with, and all stuff, it's not us endorsing any of that. I mean, obviously,
it's not like, hey, go empire. Like, no, it's because that if they're competent villains, it's a more satisfying victory.
But anytime I like to play, any video games like, TIE Fighter or Empire at War, I always like to play as the... because they're overwhelming.
Because they're the side designed to actually fight and win a war.
Yes. Because, yes, like when you play as the Rebellion at Empire at War, you are like restricted to how many units you can have, how much resources you can have, because you're literally supposed to be, gathering here and there, versus the Empire is just like, well, we have plans, we have infinite resources, we're just going to keep, pumping these things out. I mean, at some point when you get the Death Star, it's just like, just unfair at that point.
Yeah, this planet's a problem. Let's just make it, not.
And the planet's gone.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, and I mean, it extends beyond that. It's like, like for Marvel, that's one of the reasons why people like Infinity War and Endgame so much, because Thanos is truly a threat. But he's not just a threat, like he's fleshed out. Like we understand where he's coming from. We don't agree with him, but we understand where he's coming from. I mean, ultimately his plan is really silly if you think about it, because if you got the powers of a god to do anything you want, do you get rid of half the universe or just create twice as much stuff? Like the alternative doesn't end in anyone dying. So, that's why he's the Mad Titan, because he is insane.
Well, I don't even know if he was a Mad Titan. I don't think he never had any moments where he was just off his rocker. Now, supposedly with Gamora, there's a scene where I guess it says that she's like the last of her people, and I guess Thanos never actually went back to check, and him eliminating half the life literally ended the planet at that point. Because
I don't know. I just know in the comics he celebrated Christmas with her.
Well,
I'm serious about that, because Titan is in like the moon Titan. That's where he's from, because he's an Eternal. Okay, like the movies didn't go into this at all, but like there's the Eternals on Earth, and then there's a group of them. I believe it's a group of them left and went to Titan, and that's who he's descended from. He's technically an Eternal. He's a mutant. That's why he's stronger than all the other Eternals, because he's a mutant. He's got vast powers compared to them, but he's an Eternal. And he celebrated Christmas with her.
I think it would have made a better Mad Titan if his whole point was to just woo Madam Death.
Yeah, because like they set that up back in the Avengers, like in the final credit scene, where he's like, to court them is to court death. He turns the screen, and smiles. Like that was what that was setting up. I mean, it would have taken some explanation, because I don't know if we were far enough along in the, by the way, crazy comic book stuff to get to the whole there's the abstracts, and one of them's the personification of death, and she's a woman, and he's in love with her. Like, it could have been done, but it would have taken a little bit more setup.
Well, it would have made Hela's introduction also a little bit different, because Hela would have been like, oh yeah, you could have had even because while she is the goddess of death for the Asgardians, she is still not the same as the Mistress Death.
Right, because she's the goddess of death for the Asgardians.
Yes.
They're like their own localized thing. Death, the personification, is literally the personification of the act of dying, of death, like throughout the multiverse. Okay. And so there are other abstracts like her. There's love and hate. There's a few others. But like they're literally like personifications of ideas. And there's actually like a comic where Drax kind of talks about that a little bit. how it's very, very, very not good for your psyche to be around beings like that, because like they represent awesome cosmic power on a scale that mortals cannot comprehend. But no, it would have taken some doing, but I think they could have done it. But no, for Hela, there's also things about her they didn't do right from the comics.
Well, the fact that she is the daughter of Loki.
Yes, but from the previous cycle, not this Loki.
Ah.
That's how they coexist, but not as father and daughter. So because they've gone through the Ragnarok cycle more than once, and it always ends, the rebirth at the end, and it's the same beings over and over again.
But as long as the foundation's good.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm kind of glad they didn't go with the Earth X version of all that, because I think most people would have been like, "What the hell is going on here?" Like, don't get me wrong, I'd love to see that on the big screen. We need like 30 more movies before people are ready for that. And I don't know if the MCU is going to make it to that.
Well, we'll have to see if the Fantastic Four can reinvigorate any of that.
Hopefully. I am irrationally hopeful for the Fantastic Four and Superman.
Well, and that's how I am with Jurassic World Rebirth, because Dominion. But yes, no, the MCU needs to continue on. But the problem is that people talk about fatigue, and I think there was a little bit of that in there. I think that with a lot of the movies, a lot of the shows, they try to put a focus too much on, smashing you in the face with a message versus just having a good story that conveys that implies a message versus being battered with it.
Yeah, I mean, you've got that, and kind of in the vein of the fatigue is also like Infinity War and Endgame really are like up here, and the movies that followed were not like Spider-Man No Way Home. It was up here, but the rest was like.
I did like the Multiverse of Madness. I did like some of the directions they went on that. I like the fact that, that was really the first time you'd seen heroes just straight up get murdered.
Yeah.
And not in pleasant ways.
Yeah.
No, I still beg to differ that Black Bolt would have killed himself that way.
Oh, yeah, I don't think his powers work that way.
And Reed is the dumbest smart person in the world if he would have said that.
Well, there's comic foundations for Reed being a smart idiot. Like,
I guess he was probably trying to diffuse the situation in the stupidest way possible.
Yeah, and diffuse it so much, a different actor's playing him now.
Yeah, which is, I don't know. I'll have to see how that goes.
There was something in the trailer that I didn't notice till someone pointed out, where apparently Ben Grimm has a beard. I didn't notice that in the trailer. The last trailer just came out. But yeah, I'm interested to see if this ends with them in the MCU proper and their world gets destroyed, or if they do actually stop Galactus. So, who is, thank God, not a cloud.
Yes, he's actually Galactus.
Yes. And I'm curious to see who else we see in the movie, because I've got the feeling there's going to be some other villains that we just haven't seen in the trailers yet.
Doom.
I'm really pulling for Red Ghost and the Space Apes. Or Mole Man, or both.
Mole Man. And what they need to do is recreate the end of The Incredibles with Mole Man and coming out riding whatever the one Giganto or the big green monster from the
cover of Fantastic Four '1.
Yeah,
that'd be nice.
Look, it's the Underminer. No, it's Mole Man.
Yeah. Mole Man, Giganto, the Moloids.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. Again, I'm irrationally hopeful for that. Like, I like what I'm seeing. Like, I like the it's clearly like the 50s or 60s, but futuristic. I think retrofuturism is the term they use for that. And Superman, well, I don't know. James Gunn seems to get it for a lot of superheroes. So I'm hoping that he gets Superman.
I see videos about different things. I keep seeing this one where he throws a desk at a window, not through the window, just into the window.
Yeah.
Yelling at Lex.
Yeah, I imagine. Lex probably gives him lots of reasons to yell at him. So, we'll see. Also, we'll have to see how they, expanded cast with, Hawk Girl and Guy Gardner Green Lantern and Mr. Terrific is. So, Don't know if we really need them in a Superman movie, but I guess may as well start the DCU 2.0. I guess. I don't know.
Well,
yeah.
So, which means that there's going to have to be, and unless they're going to somehow pull in Robert Pattinson's Batman into, which, I mean, I liked the Batman. I thought it was okay. I thought it was more of a detective story. I still don't see why anybody would just let this guy in a bat suit stand around and look at a crime scene with the police, but
yeah, well,
it makes me just imagine that under their breath they're like, we know this is Bruce Wayne. He's not fooling anybody.
like the Pete Holmes videos. You're clearly Bruce Wayne. What? What are you talking about?
Like, look over there. There's Bruce Wayne. He's got like the bike. Yeah. Well, so I don't know. I probably won't be with you to watch the other movies, but we're looking at this coming week to go see Jurassic World as long as you are able to on Wednesday. I think it's a 7 p.m. showing.
I'll double check, but I think I should be available.
Okay. Because if we do, then we'll have a follow up on that to talk about it. And,
no.
But yeah, I mean, I don't have anything else at the moment.
No, I think that's about all I got. Yeah. Oh, I did see that they hired Denis Villeneuve, I think it's how you pronounce his last name, guy directed the 2 recent Dune movies and Blade Runner 2049, to direct the next James Bond movie. I don't know why they don't just hire Henry Cavill to play James Bond, but whatever. I think he'd be perfect. But, yeah. And I think he's making it for Amazon, maybe? I don't know. But we'll see how that goes. I still like the idea that people had of just having Christopher Nolan direct it, have Henry Cavill play Bond, and set it back in the 60s fighting Spectre. Like, I'd go for that. You know.
Well, the question is, are they doing a continuation of the previous, or is this going to be just a new iteration?
Well, I mean, did you watch the last one?
I know. But so what they do a lot of times is they try to play it off as that James Bond is a moniker, like a...
Yeah, but they can't.
Why?
Because in Skyfall, you see his parents' graves. And their last name is Bond. Like, that's his real name.
Yeah.
Because I know for a long time I was like, well, that explains the different actors playing him. But also, like, if you think it through, it doesn't work. Because Bond is, like, the worst spy in the world. I love the movies, but whenever you go everywhere and introduce yourself by your real name... Like, and then some other guy with your name comes in and is like, oh, hello, Mr. Bond. Like, no, who the hell are you? You're not James Bond. Like, you the last guy looked like Sean Connery. You look like Roger Moore or George Lazenby for that one movie. You know, or Timothy Dalton. Like, no, these men look nothing alike. But we're supposed to assume it's the same guy is the thing.
Yeah.
It's just that, you know, we just have to pretend that it's the same guy. Because...
You got that weird situation where you have both Sean Connery and Roger Moore playing James Bond in the same year.
Yeah.
Because of
bizarre rights issues.
Yep.
Yeah. But no, and like from Dr. No to It's Not the World Is Not Enough, Die Another Day, that is one continuity. Because like there's one thing, there's some things that get referenced in the Roger Moore era that happened in the George Lazenby movie of all of them, where Bond gets married, and at the end of the movie gets married, and spoiler alert for a movie from like the early 70s, by the way. Then him and his wife are driving along, and Blofeld comes up, machine guns the car, and Bond pulls over, and he's like, "Oh, I think it was Blofeld. Let's go get him." And looks over, and his wife took one right between the eyes. She's dead. And it ends with him sitting there crying. And in the next movie, Connery comes back, and he is after Blofeld with a vengeance because it's a continuation. Because Blofeld killed his wife, he's killing the bastard this time. Does not succeed. And then in the first Roger Moore movie, he's visiting his wife's grave at the beginning of the movie, and then a guy that looks like Blofeld that they can't call Blofeld because of weird rights issues attacks him and he kills him. And then it's referenced a couple more times there. It's referenced in the Timothy Dalton movies that he had a wife and she got killed. And then in the Pierce Brosnan movies, they don't mention her, I don't think, but he does go to where Q has like all the gadgets from all the previous movies and everything. So it is one continuity up through Die Another Day. And then the the Craig movies take off in a different continuity, but the problem is they've got parts of the other continuity still in them. Judi Dench is still playing M. She played M in the other movies. Like, it doesn't work. And then he has the car from Goldfinger in his garage, like with the ejector seat and everything. And it's like, what is happening in these movies? Like, are we the same continuity or not, damn it? And like, the MI6 building is still the MI6 building because it's the actual MI6 building. And for those of you that don't know, in the later Bond movies, in the Brosnan era into the beginning of the Daniel Craig era, the building they say is MI6 headquarters is the actual MI6 headquarters. I'm given to understand the Queen had to intervene on this one. Literally telling them, because they're like, MI6 didn't want them to use the building. And she's like, look, the Bond movies have generated a lot of goodwill. They can use the damn building. At least that's what I understand happened. She probably didn't use the word damn. She was a sophisticated lady.
How about this? Somehow, when Bond got married, him and his wife had a baby. That was Daniel Craig.
So he's James Bond Jr., not the guy in the cartoon?
Yes.
Could be. But yeah, so that movie kind of ended the whole, like, well, maybe it's just a code name. So.
All right.
Yeah. So no, I don't expect it to be a continuation. Because, spoiler alert, Bond died at the end of the movie. Although I think it even said Bond will return at the end of the credits in that one. So I'm like 90% certain that it said that.
I haven't watched it.
I mean, I like the Daniel Craig movies, except for the second one, Quantum of Solace. They literally only had like half a script and just kind of like went with it. And even afterwards, everyone's like, yeah, like, what was the point of this movie? We don't know. And then they just kind of bring up the villain from it later on, saying that Blofeld is behind it all. So.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes movies can work with half a script, or kind of work.
That one didn't.
Jurassic Park 3, that script was being written as they were filming. So.
Oh, man.
And that's why it's all over the damn place. That's what Billy was, originally written to die by the Pteranodons. And then he's just like, Billy survived! Yay!
Well, I mean, Lando was supposed to die in Return of the Jedi. He wasn't supposed to make it out of the Death Star. Like, that's why it's just like that sudden, just out of nowhere, whoosh, like, because that was added later.
Yeah.
Him and Neen Numb.
No.
Neen Numb needs his own movie. No subtitles, just go with it.
No, the problem is that nobody wanted the Millennium Falcon to die.
Probably. But, I mean, I didn't want Lando to die.
No,
I understood where Lando was coming from. He made up for what he did. Like, he was one of the group at that point. Like, he was cool.
No, I liked Lando. That was obvious.
But not like that, or like we were talking about before we started filming. Just weird things that come up that happen later on in movies, like like Snake Plissken, the whole eye patch thing. That was Kurt Russell's idea. I guess. Do you remember the movie? What was it called? It's Arnold, but he's a spy.
True Lies?
True Lies. The end of the movie where the guy's on the missile and he's like, "You're fired." And I guess he improv that line. Like, probably one of his best, like, one-liners, and he improv that. But yeah, now you get things like that, or like how in Jaws they were forced to hide the shark because the mechanical shark wasn't working, and it made it such a better movie because of it. I mean, sometimes it works in your favor. Limitations. That's why I'm always impressed with people that can do things within limitations. They can turn a limited bad situation into something far more productive. That's way easier than here's literally anything you would ever ask for. Here's unlimited funding. Here's a Rolodex of who's who in Hollywood. Make the movie.
Well, I mean, we talk about time and time again. Godzilla -1.
Yeah.
$20
million budget, something like that.
20, yeah, like minuscule compared to anything else, and a far better movie than I think most of the other movies we talked about that year. So
yeah, it was an excellent movie.
I'm excited to see what comes from that. But
yeah, or like we've talked about before, like the Blair Witch Project, like that was made on a nothing budget, and it was just the right moment to use the internet and everything, and it worked. It made some ungodly amount of money.
And then the Blair Witch 2 came out.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the other Blair Witch movies, like, because what are you really going to do after that first one? Like that was like you're here. There is only one direction to go. Like you hit the mountaintop the first time out.
Well, I mean, right now, I mean, the '90s is having a resurgence because, like, you know, in fashion, '90s clothing.
Yeah.
But now '90s movies, like I Know What You Did Last Summer.
You know, Chad watched all those recently. He had never seen them. And we were talking about it, and I was like, Chad, you know, like, I should like these movies, but there's just something about them I don't. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because I've only watched them like once or twice. Because, like, I love slasher movies. Like, this is literally like there's the blueprint for a movie I should love. But there's just something about it, and I don't know what it is.
Well, the problem with, like, at least with I Know What You Did Last Summer, just talking about the first one, is it's kind of got like the Scooby-Doo issue, where the villain, listen, it'll make sense here in a moment.
Okay.
The villain, when the villain is doing the villain things, the villain's like overpowered, strong, somehow like supernatural.
Yeah.
But when it all comes down to it, it's just a guy.
Yeah.
There's no supernatural anything to it. It's just a guy with a fish hook. Now, don't get me wrong, maybe as a fisherman, he's got a little bit more strength than a normal person. But, you know, if that's the case, you know, there should be more disgruntled fishermen going around murdering people with ice hooks, you know, but you know what? You see what I get? The reference to Scooby-Doo, because, like, you know, and all those things, like these monsters somehow do, you know, like, will pick things up that they shouldn't be able to pick up. You know, can do all these things, but then as soon as they get them tied up, they take off, and it's just a dude in a costume.
Yeah. Old Man Withers from the Haunted Amusement Park outside of town.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that is it. I don't know. I should rewatch the first one again just to see, because, like, I rewatched.
I mean, Scream's the same way. I mean, it just happens to be two people in a suit.
Yeah.
And I wonder, is there any cues that it's the two different people? Because, I mean, obviously between the two actors, there's a height difference between the two.
Yeah, but since you never see them together as the killer,
yeah,
no. Because Levi's a big fan of the movies. We sat down and tried to figure out, like, because there's a few points where it has to be one of the two.
Yeah.
Just because we know where the other one is. Because, like, whenever I think whenever Sydney's attacked in the bathroom, that has to be Stu, because she just was talking to Billy. Billy could not have gotten in front of her into the bathroom, into the stall. Like, that's got to be Stu. Or some jerk-off kid, because that's also whenever a couple of kids dress up and run around the school. That might not be either of them. And towards the end, the random killings before Billy shows up, is I think it has to be Billy, because he's not accounted for, and Stu's there at the party. I don't think Stu could have slipped out, got dressed up, killed some people, and then come back like everything's fine.
Yeah.
I don't think, but since we don't know an exact timeline, and the beginning of the movie, I don't know. I think I had it figured out that was probably Stu, but I don't remember. Yeah.
So
it's easy in the third one. There's only one killer.
Yeah, that's what's also easy about I Know What You Did Last Summer. It's just the guy they hit with a car.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the second movie, it's a short middle-aged woman or a 20-year-old psychopath, and, like, I only know for sure that it's the 20-year-old psychopath in a few parts. I know for sure it's her killing Randy, because she says so later on. And I think it's her. Well, I think it's her that kills Sarah Michelle Gellar's character, because the guy is at the party whenever it happens, and she's like the first reporter on the scene, and then she's like, I've got to go. Then I think she's the one that attacks Sydney, because she leaves, and, you know, that's my speculation. Forget 4, 5, and 6. I've only watched them a handful of times, so I'm definitely a bigger fan of 1, 2, and 3. 4 is good. Definitely has one of my favorite moments in the movies. There's a group of kids who, like, all get, like, you know, the phone call, except for one of them. And so they're talking to Dewey, who's the sheriff now, and she's like, what does that mean? Does that mean I'm going to die? He's like, no. And he's like, and she's like, well, what the hell does that mean? And I thought for sure she got killed, but she shows back up in part 6. Like,
well,
part 7 is going to bring back Sydney.
I mean, I think what was kind of neat about, like, we're talking 90s horror, that the fact that the Final Destination movies, like, come full circle back to where the people are on the plane that blows up in the first movie. Like,
are you talking about the new one?
It's either the new one or it's one,
because the fifth one does.
Yeah, one of them circles back around. I mean, I don't know.
And it like, if you pay attention to the movie, like, it does a lot of, like, subtle things that you should have picked up on. Like, if I remember right, no one's using cell phones, except I think one guy had, like, a flip phone. And it's like one of those like, well, does he just have an old phone? Like, but he would have had that in the '90s, you know. And it's these little few little subtle things like that like you don't pick up on the first time around, but you're like, yeah, this clearly was the '90s if you pay attention once you know. So yeah.
But no, I have not watched. Well, like I said, I haven't continued. I think I watched the first one, maybe the second one. I know I just watched the first one, and I just watched the synopsis. I kind of should have come back around.
Oh, Final Destination.
Yeah.
Yeah. The second one's the one everyone remembers. The log truck.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Everyone remembers that scene.
That's why nobody drives behind the log trucks now. even though in most instances there's no way that a log's gonna come bouncing off one of those. Like even if the chains were to come undone, more than likely the log's gonna fall off the side. Like the whole no.
Yeah.
No. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still awesome as hell, but
yeah. I don't know. Maybe we'll see some other movies from the '90s make a comeback. Maybe we'll see a new Wing Commander movie. Or not.
Nothing wrong with that. Hey, there's a lot wrong with it.
The fact that it had actual scenes in the video game with actual actors and didn't cast any of them in the movie. Because, like, Mark Hamill was the main character. The guy that plays Biff was, like, another main character. And none of them were in the movie. Like, nothing against Freddie Prinze Jr., Matthew Lillard, or whoever else was in that movie.
The rest of the Scooby-Doo gang.
Yeah, I mean, nothing against them, but, like, they'd be like if they make a Command and Conquer movie and cast someone else as Kane. Like, they'd just be silly. By the way, you know, the guy that plays Kane in those games is the director for the games. Yeah. Yeah, then the second game actually cast real actors. They had James Earl Jones, Michael Biehn, a few other people. Yeah. Then later entries in the games have real actors in them. Like the third Red Alert has Tim Curry in the scene we've referenced several times.
Space.
Yeah. George Takei plays the Emperor of Japan. Then the guy J.K. Simmons plays the U.S. president. I think is actually a robot. He's like a duplicate that was built to fool the Americans. But yeah, Udo Kier is the psychic Yuri in Red Alert 2.
I was like the fact that Red Alert, they sent Einstein back to kill Hitler, and then in Red Alert 2 they sent somebody in to kill Einstein.
That's Red Alert 3.
Red Alert 3, okay.
Yeah, Red Alert 2 doesn't have time travel to screw with the timeline. Red Alert 2 is the U.S., the Allies, won in the first game. And so they installed what they thought was a puppet government in Russia. But it was actually a guy descended from the Romanovs who's like, no, Russia will be strong yet again. And so he has Yuri, and he uses psychic powers to take out the U.S. nuclear arsenal so that it'll be a straight-up fight. And they like steamroll in from Canada and Mexico. And then the beginning of the third game is the fallout from all of that. And Romanov's missing. And so the others are like, well, we've only got one choice. And the main guy is Alexis Desnov, plays the Jin in the Wishmaster movies. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, Premier, like, I recently came in charge of this program. And they get down there, it's Tim Curry, and they get down in the basement, like, we're going to use time travel. And he's like, what? This is the time machine. He's like, what are you talking about? Like, this is absurd. He goes, no, it's serious. It's a time machine. He's like, oh, whatever. He just like gives the guy the coordinates, and he's like, no, we can't do this. So they go back to like some conference where Einstein is, and then he takes out Einstein, and you know, so yeah. So the timeline is really screwed up by that point. Somehow that equals robots from Japan. And they're like, all right, well, fine, use our nuclear weapons against them. And the woman's like, our what? And the scientist is like, oh, right. You took out Einstein, which means they didn't have his theories to build the atomic bomb for the Americans that we stole from. So, like, we don't have them. And they're just like, well, that sucks. And so it's a straight up fight from there until Tim Curry escapes to space to evade capitalism. But yeah, those games are excellent. Like I'd kill for a movie based on those.
Maybe we'll get it based off the first one.
That's fine. That one also has Kane working for Stalin until he poisons him at the end of the game in the Russian ending. And then he's just like, long live the Brotherhood. You see the Brotherhood or Nod symbol back behind him. So, yeah, because I think he's actually like an alien or something. I don't know. He has to fight a rogue AI in the beginning of the third game. So then eventually the aliens show up in the third game or the fourth game. I don't know. The last one was a little sketchy. Meant to be played online. Command and Conquer is only meant to be played over LAN and dial-up.
Yeah, you were playing. I mean, we played quite a bit of Command and Conquer, but my go-to was always Warcraft, especially Warcraft 2. Playing that on BattleNet.
Yeah.
But I always got it. Always, it's like, oh, I can't find someone to battle against, and it's like, oh, this person's looking for someone in the lobby, and it's like somebody that had like tailored the map to themselves to give them like all the buildings, everything. You start off with a peasant and a farm, and you're like, okay, let's get this going, and then it's like death rolls in. And you're like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you guys cheated because you have.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think we've rambled on long
Yeah,
enough.
we were firmly in the ramble zone. Kind of like the danger zone, but no Kenny Loggins.
Yes.
Or Maverick.
No.
But, minor side note, I hope I don't get too political in saying this, but the F-14 might be making a comeback soon because apparently the other country that owns some no longer owns any of them. They were all blown to bits a few weeks ago. You can look that one up to know what I'm talking about, but it's the reason why we didn't make parts for them for the longest time. So they wouldn't fall into the hands of another country that we were friends with at the time, but are no longer friends with, and haven't been so since like the 70s. You can figure out who I'm talking about. It's been in the news lately. But yeah, there's actual aerial footage of them being blown up. So yeah, I think they're all toast now. So
yeah, like I said, we're definitely not no political whatever on this. This is just that was just a observation / discussion.
yeah,
I want to keep it at that. So
yes. Also, if you've not seen the second Top Gun movie, spoiler alert, it does actually end with them having to steal an F-14 from random Asian nation that they're bombing, so they don't actually say who it is, I don't think. I think they literally just say an enemy nation now that I think about it. I don't think they ever actually say which country they were attacking.
well, because anytime you do, I think it ends up aging poorly.
Yeah, I mean, Iron Eagle 2 is just fine. It's the U.S. and the Russians teaming up. I don't remember who they're teaming up against. It's a Middle Eastern country. Might be the same one I was just talking about. But, yeah. I don't know. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But, yeah, no. So they, like, get shot down, and they're like, hey, remember that airfield we passed? Like, let's go there, and there's an F-14 there. And, the new guy's like, this thing is going to fly. And Tom Cruise is like, I know what I'm doing.
Do.
Yeah. So they got to take off in that thing. And
Has to play volleyball first before
oh, man.
some beach volleyball.
Oh, hang on. Okay. So, again, I don't want to get political given who said this, but it was a news conference talking about the recent dust up involving the bunker buster bombs. He was talking about the pilots and how they all went through some kind of training school. It wasn't the Top Gun school, it's a different one for the Air Force, because Top Gun's for the Navy. It was a different Air Force, it was a different school, and he's like, and I want to assure everyone, there is no beach volleyball and no tag football. And I was just like, wow, what a reference. What a reference. Like, what a time to be alive. Like, we're talking a serious news conference, and he starts referencing the Top Gun movies. I'm just like, all right, so this is where we are now. Okay. But yeah, I thought that was hilarious. And like, no one in the news I don't think they got it in the news broadcast. Like, I think they're sitting there like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Beach volleyball. And I'm like, you know who would get this? Val Kilmer. We lost a good man there. But Tom Cruise is still here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, kind of talking about what we've been talking about, this minor side note. There's a thing where like a bunch of people in Hollywood think that like movies as we know them, like the theatrical experience, will be dead in like 20 years. And first of all, some of the commentators are like, I don't think it's going to be 20 years. And others are like, well, they're going to change, obviously. Like, it's not going to fade away because people do like going to the movies. They just have to have movies they want to go see. And stop charging so goddamn much. Like, if it costs me the same amount of money to buy the movie later, why am I going to go deal with rude-ass people on their phones in the theater? I've got a giant TV at the house. Like,
that's why I said it's got to be. We need to start looking at the new experience. It needs to be virtual reality where you're in the movie.
Yeah, but like the side note was another person was like, they were saying, also conveniently, 20 years is approximately how much longer Tom Cruise will be alive. And because a lot of people think that he's like the last real like movie star that we were used to back in like the rest of the era of Hollywood. That, the larger than life is in these big movies. Can act in seemingly anything and. Like, because think like younger people, who are like big stars. Who do we have? I mean, there's the one guy whose name I can't remember, which means he can't be that big of a star. But like, he was in Twisters, he was in Top Gun 2. He's going to be in The Running Man. He's literally just remaking movies from when he grew up, which like maybe that's what they got to do.
Yeah.
He's a decent actor, and I can't think of his name, but like he's done some bigger things. But like, who we got? Timothy Chalamet. I think he's a decent actor, but like he's not a big star like Tom Cruise. Like you can't go to. He's not like one of those people went to the Amazon and found that tribe that had no contact with the outside world, but they somehow knew who Michael Jackson was. Like that's star power. Okay. We will not see that like again. As they say. And like Tom Cruise, like one of the last like real stars. That's why I've seen other people like just put Tom Cruise in charge of Hollywood. Like he knows what the hell he's doing. So yeah, get him. Kevin Costner maybe. Tell him, look, your westerns are great, but no one's watching them. You got to make something else. And I hate to say that because I love westerns, but yeah, Hollywood needs to get its shit together.
Yep, I would agree.
Otherwise, we're all gonna be watching movies on Netflix from Korea. Well, presumably South Korea, but hey, what's the North got to offer? I don't know.
Well, besides when they kidnap people and force them to make movies.
Well, yeah, I mean, we know they don't like some of our movies. Of course, it's whenever those movies are about killing their glorious leader, like, I can understand why they don't like them, or at least the glorious leader doesn't.
Oh, that scene where they played Firework. Or, was it that? I think that's what it was. Where it's like the slow motion shot of the helicopter getting...
Oh, yeah, I never actually watched the movie, but...
It's worth watching. It's definitely worth watching.
Yeah, I remember the take in Team America World Police. Did you ever watch that?
No.
Oh my God, Jim. That is a movie everyone should watch, depending on your sensibilities. I'll put it to you this way. It's a movie full of puppets, and it has a sex scene with puppets.
Well, I mean, Sausage Party was a sex scene with food.
Yeah, but this was like one of those like, wow, we're just going to go for it, huh? Like, all right, like, I don't know what the hell I'm watching at this point, but... And the greatest theme song ever. Oh, my God. Look it up, folks. Also, don't watch it at work. Very, very not safe for work. Lots of profanity. Copious use of the F word. Like, yeah. But it's great. You should listen to it.
All right.
The movie itself is also spectacular in like the most over-the-top way imaginable. It's people who made South Park. Trey Parker and Matt Stone. It's great.
It's a breed of movies that we'll no longer be able to see. I mean, I think the last movie, at least that I can think of, that fit that guideline where we'll never see a movie like that is Tropic Thunder.
Oh, yeah. Tropic Thunder. Yeah, I watched that with my niece a couple months ago. There's definitely some moments where she's just like, oh my God. And I was like, yeah, they don't make movies like this anymore.
And I get the fact that movies adapt, but at the same time, like, even when I went to go back and watch it, there was not one thing that really stood out to me that was just like, this is so... It was a movie about absurdity.
Well, right. It's like... Okay, it's like when people complain about Blazing Saddles. Okay? Blazing Saddles, very notoriously, uses a word that most people consider to be a very awful word repeatedly. Like, a lot. But if you objectively look at the movie, everyone using that word is a moron. Like, that's the point. They are ignorant people saying ignorant things. It's not depicted as a positive. The people are being laughed at, by both characters in the movie and us. And so, no, there was a point to it. Plus Mel Brooks is a funny guy. Hopefully still got it. We'll see in Spaceballs 2 in like 2 years, but I have confidence. I suspect it will be better than any of the Star Wars movies we've gotten recently, except for Rogue One. But no, this might end up being a case of how like, what is it? I've seen people say that like the Orville is like the best Star Trek going at the moment, or like how Galaxy Quest is one of the best Star Trek movies out there. Because even though it's playing it for laughs, like it also has all the tropes from Star Trek. Well, it works.
I haven't watched Orville, but I see a lot of the...
I've watched a couple episodes. It was decent. I really need to watch the rest of it, though. Because I hear it does actually get like some actual, like, not just jokey parts, but actual, like, substantive, because I guess Seth MacFarlane, I guess is a big Star Trek fan.
Yeah.
So...
And it's not all played up for laughs. Like, I think there's, I think he's like, these are how people would actually be in space. Like, people are, like, sense of humor, all that kind of stuff, it's still going to be there. People are going to have that, that escape. I mean, that's how I get through stressful times, is I make joke in light of it, so,
Yeah, well, again, that's why I come back to, I think Enterprise is, having now seen it all, is closer to how we would be, because, I mean, like, they're joking. They get into bizarre situations. They get, like the captain is a lacrosse fan. He likes watching sports because he's from Earth where sports are played.
There's that whole situation where we totally stole those people's warp drive to the warp core.
Yeah,
and
there's some morally dubious decisions being made in that show because there's not. The speech doesn't solve all your problems.
Because they're like, well, you get back in 3 years, it's going to take us like 20.
Yeah, and it's like the same thing with Cisco. In Deep Space Nine, especially in the episode in the Pale Moonlight, where Cisco has to completely compromise his morals to get the Romulans into the war because he knows that's the only way to win.
So he goes to Garrick and
Garrick kills a couple people, and Garrick, he initially has it out with Garrick, and Garrick's like, look, we got the Romulans into the war. You might have just saved the Alpha Quadrant, and all it cost you was the life of a criminal, the life of a Romulan senator, and your can't think of the phrase he used. Your morals. And he's like, I don't know about you, but I consider that a bargain. And the whole thing is Cisco talking into the camera and for his log, and at the end he's like, and you know what? I can live with that.
Deletes the log.
And then he deletes the log, but still, that's the honest. Like, if that's what it's going to take to win this war, then so be it. I can sleep at night.
You know what? The Romulans would have done the exact same thing.
Oh, yeah. The Romulans would be like, we'll sacrifice 10,000 people. We don't care. Like that episode where they're going to invade Vulcan, and then, the plan's found out, and the Warbird just decloaks, just vaporizes the 3 ships full of Romulan soldiers so they can't be captured. That's 10,000 dudes right there. The Romulans don't think twice about something like that.
Yeah.
They're duplicitous bastards. But also, I remember the episode where, the races all find out that there's that progenitor race,
mm-hmm.
and the Klingons and the Cardassians just blow it off, but it's the Romulans that call up Picard at the end, something to think about potentially. Maybe we're more alike than we think, than we realize. And Picard's surprised because the Romulans of all people, but they are descended from the Vulcans, so there's a logic there. But yeah,
all right.
You don't get writing like that in the current Trek shows. At least not in Discovery. You didn't. I haven't watched all Strange New Worlds. I hear that kind of rekindles the fire of the Discovery phase of, well, not Discovery, but of the original series. So I got to watch the rest of the way. But yeah, we're well into the ramble zone. So
yeah, we're almost to 3 hours here. So.
Yeah. I warned Dad about this too before I came over. I was like, we don't have an agenda. That's when things just go. So yeah.
But you know what? If you go through and clip all this stuff, I think it'll make some good content.
Oh yeah, I'll probably got oodles of clips I can use from this now. So.
But anyways, we'll go ahead and conclude this meeting of the Geek Cabal. We'll maybe next time try to have a little bit more of an agenda. It was kind of on, whatever, if I was going to be able to.
Well, it's on short notice, but also there's just nothing happening right now. On the front of stuff we talk about, there's movies coming up we want to go see. There's trailers for those, but we've talked about them already. There's just Gen Con's a month away. There's no other conventions we're going to between now and then. There's no big scandals erupting. Well, except I think some people figured out that Sweet Baby Inc. that we've talked about in here before was some kind of weird front for the Canadian government thing. But I'm not going to go into that at this point. That's it. Nothing's happening. It's the summer. Yeah. Things don't happen.
So well, anyways, we'll see you on the next one, and hopefully we'll have some more content that is more relevant to the now instead of just our incessant ramblings. And
yeah, at the very least, we'll plan a Star Trek episode like we had the Star Wars episode, maybe. Yes, I mean, there's plenty to talk about Star Trek too. So
yeah, we've got the future, the supposed 4th Star Trek entry that's going to be coming out at some point.
Yeah.
So
it's a shame we'll probably never get that R-rated Tarantino Star Trek. I'd love to have seen that, but anyway, yeah.
You have to make it about the Romulans, and then you can make it R-rated.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
All right. So, like the usual, like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. If you're still here, and if you are, thank you. Comments down below. What did you care for here? What did you not care for? If you're going to say the rambling, please at least be nice about it, because obviously we understand this too, but, let us know. And sharing and commenting are the best way to help us grow the channel, and we always appreciate that. And for those of you who helped us get over the 500 subscriber hurdle recently, we definitely appreciate that. Hope you stick with us. But that's all we've got for today. So, Jim, it's
I don't know. I don't got a send off because we didn't have anything we really talked about.
No. It's this meeting of the Geek Cabal is
I did say
coming to a
that.
close.
I did say that.
Okay, well, sorry, I went over minutes, so
That's all right.
that's my bad.
Well, anyways, it has now concluded.
Yes.
So this meeting is now concluded, and yeah, we'll see you in the next gathering.
See you folks later.